Buddy. All right. If you guys did not see, my latest commentary video is out. That's what I was working on yesterday. Please go check it out. If you saw me react to the recent Mike Klum documentary on EDP, it's probably going to feel like a little bit of a repeat, but because they're two different audiences, I was trying to make the argument, which I think I successfully did, that basically if men especially hate EDP, they better hate Andrew Tate as well, because literally same person, different brand. So if you guys haven't checked that out, I linked it in the chat. We have we have three specific topics I want to talk about today. And one is that surrogacy story that everyone is talking about. I have some thoughts on it. And then I want to talk about some comments that I received in response to some of the topics we've been covering, including a conversation or a topic that came up on my Burke commentary channel. So, we'll have those conversations. Thank you, Chaz. That was a great commentary video. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just figured there was like a cognitive dissonance happening in a lot of, especially men's brains, about their favorites. And it was just crazy how many men in particular were just, on one side of their mouth talking about how much they hate PDF files and EDP, and on the other side of their mouth, Andrew Tate. It's very interesting because it plays into this whole conversation we're having about like a spectrum of evil. And there is something to be said about like EDP attempting to be with and then unable to execute, and Andrew Tate actually completing and then bragging. Like, this is sort of the irony. It's like EDP tried and failed, and you guys think he's the most evil thing, which you should. But on top of that, Andrew Tate accomplished, and yet he's your hero? Isn't that interesting? And I'm telling you, pretty privilege, white privilege, it plays a role. Okay? I'm telling you it plays a role because fame, money, all of it. Status just lets you get away. Status makes you seem like there's a reason you're doing it. Like with Trump said, like, if you're a celebrity, they let you. And I'm telling you that narrative is 100% true, but that's why it's so psychologically, philosophically evil to target people and take advantage of people when you know. Now, of course, people might say, oh, but then when do celebrities get to fall in love? Look, okay, celebrities can also be stalked. Fans can also take advantage of celebrities. It's just typically, if you have a good crew around you, there's going to be some boundaries. Like, a lot of people don't want to be famous for this exact reason. They don't want to feel like everyone's always with them because of their money. And on the flip side, people literally become rock stars so they can have groupies. So the question is, why are you becoming a famous person? And so you have to think about it. It's just that there is that power dynamic that needs to be taken into consideration. Look, celebrities are more than able to find consenting adults their age who are responsible in their own right, who aren't necessarily at their status of celebrity. People do it all the time. Usually it's people with careers. You could think about, like, I don't know, George Clooney and his lawyer wife or something. Like, people usually with careers, or Keanu Reeves and his girlfriend. I think fiance, maybe. Either way, you kind of know as you get older because those people have lives, and I think that's what people are looking for. It's like, what do you have a life? Do you have a hobby? Do you have something going on for yourself that makes me feel like you're not just with me because I have something going on? And that's really difficult to discern, but it plays a role in a lot of the dynamic discourse that's been happening. I also skipped over, there was so much TikTok discourse happening. I didn't do it yet. I'm thinking about it, but I'm having a realization, and we're going to talk about it today. And this is the conversation we'll be having forever. Truly, girls will never stop talking about it. But words mean different things in different bubbles, and everyone's using different words to mean different things, and no one can quite grasp. And it's not that people are, I know we've been talking about this word stupid. It's not that you're stupid, but it is because you're stubborn. Absolutely. But even more than that, I think, it's a combination of not being well-read and being a feelings creature, because we are a feelings creature. Like, so much of this is truly because we're feelings. If we were logical creatures, we would just make logical decisions, but we're not. We're feelings creatures, which we're going to talk about today with labels. We choose labels because they feel right. We get into relationships because they feel right, even when they feel wrong. Like, we are aiming to feel good in our bodies, good in our lives. And when we don't feel good, you know, we either self-harm and keep doing it to ourselves, or we're convinced it's supposed to feel good, so we stay in a bad situation, or you know, we realize, hey, that doesn't make me feel good, I'm not going to do it anymore. You know, but everyone's having a different relationship with the feelings relationship they're having. And so we're going to have that conversation today. This goes along with the disgust response about homosexuals, which we often see from people. They feel disgusted at the idea of two men kissing, and because they feel disgusted, it must be wrong. Instead of saying, oh, why does this make me feel bad? And that, you know, instead of taking it for granted that like, oh, this feeling must mean something. And I don't want abusers to come in and say, yeah, girls, you feel like I'm being bad or creepy, but that's just a feeling. Actually, I'm being great. Well, hold up. Like I said, if you have a bad feeling about somebody, that's all you need to say no. But you should definitely explore it later. This goes back to the biphobic conversation. If you're saying no to a bi man about dating him, that's great. Start there. No is a complete sentence. And then after, while you're in the privacy of your home, you should probably meditate on why you said no to that man. And I think people are forgetting to do the second step. So they're doing the first step, which is like taking ownership and saying, oh, I don't consent. That's super good, girls. Love that. Let's do the second step. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's start. La, 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 la. I realized this might take longer, so we should probably do this last. And by the way, do not take for granted that first step. Actually, can I just say this? Kudos to you for doing the first step of saying no and revoking consent, because that certainly took years of deconstructing the patriarchy to be able to say no in confidence without feeling guilted. Okay, so do not, you know, that's not really even the first step. That's really the second step. The first step was unlearning the guilt of saying no in the first place. The second step was learning to say no with no guilt. And the third step is going to be to introspect on why we said no. Because I think people forget, as we're learning to take agency and fight against these systems of oppression, our conservative parents, everybody who's oppressing us, we also have to keep going, you know? So give yourself some credit, okay? All right, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about this. I got this comment on my video that I made about Drew Afawalo. I'm going to go here to the past Britney video just so you guys can have context for the comment. And I'll just play a little bit of it so you know why this person was annoyed with my statement. But they seemed good about it. They were cool. So let's talk about it.
Coming to me and talking to me about this and having this discussion with me as someone who is a staunch and steadfast ally. Obviously, y'all know that. I know that I will continue to grow and evolve in my advocacy and the way I can show up for trans people and trans women specifically.
Why are cis women considered allies to trans women if we're all just women, right? Maybe we should stop calling ourselves allies, because that doesn't make any sense. Like, you can be an ally to the gay community if you're not gay, but why are you an ally to trans women if trans women are women, right? Like, this is what Kat Black was trying to say about, I think, her being labeled as queer, which I still disagree with philosophically, but I understand, is like, if Kat's a woman, then why are you saying you're an ally? Right? But maybe it's like white women and black women will say we're an ally to black women because we're not black women, but also what's the difference? So maybe that's the dilemma with it being a trans woman, white woman, disabled woman. Like, this is why I think Paris, the 20-something lesbian on TikTok, is basically saying, like, I support women, period. Because, and this is why she said, I would choose women over men any day, even men of color, because I think there's something to be said about making sure that we're just like pro-women, period. But because we live in a patriarchy, like, the fact that we have to be pro-women is because of patriarchy. Otherwise, if we didn't live under patriarchy, why would we need women's movements? Women's movements birthed out of patriarchy. So you're like putting us in a weird position where, of course, we have to be for all women. And we are, because we're being threatened by this administration, we're being threatened by the world. And this goes into everything else, right? So there's something here that might be too nuanced for the world to handle, but I think our community, I say community because we're on YouTube and anyone could be here, but you know, the people who are seriously interested in deconstructing and doing the work. I think there's something here we could talk about maybe, but I don't know what it is yet. Okay, so President Brittany talking now. So obviously what I'm doing in this moment is I'm thinking out loud. So one of the dilemmas of thinking out loud, and especially having my tonality as an autistic person, is I tend to sound like I'm making a declaration. Nowhere in my heart of hearts was I making an actual declaration, but listening to it back, I can see that it sounds like I'm making a prescription or a statement of this is what we should do. I genuinely was just thinking out loud. So no hate to this chatter, because I can totally see how they miss that. Also, I think I forget that we have so many conversations leading into conversations that I'm kind of assuming people are at least watching some of the content before watching this content. So this statement feels like so out of the blue if you don't have any context for anything we've ever spoken about, which is fair. So this chatter said, honestly, the part about if trans women are women, then stop calling yourself an ally because you're a woman and they're just women is giving I don't see color. I understand you're trying to validate trans women as women, but they're currently dealing with targeting by a fascist government and are having their lives threatened every day all over the world. On top of just experiencing gender dysphoria, there's a large difference in experience of most cis women, the experiences of trans women and intersex people. Yes, I am an ally to the trans community, including trans, masc, and non-binary, and the specificity between cis and trans is meaningful and material enough to deserve distinction. I said fair. To clarify, even though I told myself to say out of my comments, was people were throwing it around as a protest against transphobia. So I obviously didn't mention this. I had seen some TikToks, not even popular TikToks, saying, I wonder as a way to protest all these women being so offended at being called cis, if we shouldn't even call ourselves trans. And it was just like, I think people are just throwing ideas at the board to see what sticks. I don't think any of this discourse is too serious. And I think that's a big part of the problem. I don't even think what Fight Master said initially was even supposed to be a big declaration. They said, I think, and it's like, okay, you can have an opinion. So I think sometimes on the internet, all of us with a phone in our face in a headline makes us like feel like an authority to people instead of just like an authority over our own opinions. So absolutely not my intention to say like, oh, we should be colorblind or we should ignore that trans women exist or trans people exist or that people are different cis and trans, like so not a part of my narrative as a person. I was just, I'm participating and throwing things at a board to see what sticks, right? Okay, because if we never ask the questions out loud, then when are we actually going to figure it out, right? Okay, so I said, like when the queer community started asking straight people to call their boyfriends and girlfriends partners so people wouldn't wouldn't out them in conversation. So, okay, as an example, Kat Black consistently, well, not consistently, but she had this whole thing where she was like, I'm not queer, I'm trans, but I'm a woman and I pass. And saying that if you weren't here for this discourse, this is also going to sound out of the blue, but we went over this. I even have a video I can show you, but like she said that basically, it's kind of transphobic to say she's inherently queer because she's trans, because there's nothing different than her and a straight woman. That's Kat Black's argument about herself. And I'm saying in conversation with people, have you ever noticed when people say like, oh, I'm dating a woman, she's trans? It's like, why'd you have to declare that? Oh, I'm dating a guy, he's trans. Okay, like unless the pronouns were a question, like a they, them pronoun, why are you declaring that you have a trans girlfriend? Just say she's a woman. But then if you say she's just a woman, you're ignoring all the suffering, I guess, and that makes sense. But then maybe you don't want to have to out yourself every time you meet new people. So that's why people are saying, well, maybe we should go back to just saying like, this is my girlfriend. Like, why do we have to tell everybody everything? And it's dependent. It's subjective. I'm not making a prescription. So then I said, P.S. Sometimes othering can occur on accident. We're trying to point out differences, but of course we don't want to be colorblind either. We can revisit the topic on stream. They said I'm a bit confused by this wording and I'm not understanding the correlation to using partner to not out queer relationships and people. But yeah, I'll tune in next stream. Okay, so it's been a few days, but here I am. So again, I think there's like a conversation to be had about why things can feel dismissive.
Functioning from different.
I see why Kat can get fucking annoyed that people are like, you're queer, you're queer, you're queer. And yes, we all use words differently and words mean different things in different bubbles. There's like the inherent queerness you feel. There's political queerness. There's philosophical queerness. There's just being called queer because this fascist government will see you as the LGBTQIA person you are. And that's all that you get to be. I just think like the internet is not always a safe space to have all of these conversations, but I do think the way you talk about the conversation is important. So if Kat Black, one of the most prominent women on the internet, and not just a woman, someone who announces she's a trans woman in almost every piece of content she makes, also on the other side goes, I'm not queer though, I'm just like every cis woman, then why are you announcing you're trans in every video? Because like this commenter said, it changes Kat's experience. But then if it changes your experience, then why is it transphobic to say you're queer? That's where all the confusion is coming from, because the experience we're explaining is different, is a queer one. That's why you're queer, because that difference is the queerness part. Like when people say, oh, you're queer, you're weird, you're other, right? Okay.
Definitions of queer, and I'm
This chatter says, I think that your definition of queer is this contemporary one, being outwardly, alternatively, left-leaning, urban, emancipated, having an alternative lifestyle, etc. Okay, so Kat's going to respond. We're just going to listen to a few seconds.
gonna say this. I understand why people would be like, you're queer. And I'll be frank, right? For me, when people group me in, I don't typically argue with them because I recognize, here's the thing, I recognize that people are going to see me as queer. I recognize that. Do I think that's a little transphobic? Yeah, a little bit, but I recognize it. It's going to happen. It is what it is. And by a lot of people's definition, I technically could be considered that, right? But for me, as a person who did identify as queer, a big reason why I don't identify as queer is because I don't feel the way I did when I identified as queer.
Pause. I said this earlier. Exactly. We are feeling creatures. We are not logical creatures. Okay? We are biological feeling creatures. And most of us do things that feel correct or do things that even feel wrong, but we kind of like don't know what else to do. So Kat is right. She doesn't feel the same way. I say this too, like, I don't feel that way. Like you remember how I had those 3 vegans on and they're like, Brittany, you're vegan. I was like, yeah, but I don't feel vegan. Okay, I get it. If you want to call me vegan, I'm here for it. But don't be mad at me if I misrepresent the vegan movement, because I'm telling you, I don't feel vegan. But I'm waiting to feel vegan to identify as vegan. Like, I'm waiting to feel it, because I do think it's a feeling people must be having, because otherwise, like, I feel kind of like a liar. So I can see that Kat doesn't feel queer versus I feel very queer. So I get it, okay? Kat doesn't feel queer, valid. But from the outward perspective, I can see why people think I'm vegan, and that's fine. I don't care, as long as you're good with it. And I can see why Kat can understand why people think she's queer, right? I also think there is a difference between the government, bodies of power. If I was debating a conservative, I would be vegan. Like, I tell my conservative family I'm basically vegan or plant-based because they don't know the difference. They don't have the education level to know the difference. So the question is, does the internet have the education level to understand the nuanced difference between all of these labels?
So when I was coming up, I identified as genderqueer. People who are really good at tracking down stuff can find my little 14-year-old YouTube channel where I describe myself as a queer teenager, because that was an identity that I held. And for me, queer was about the active queering of things. It was about the active challenge of gender, sexuality, binary in all ways. It was about that. It was about not quite grabbing closely onto anything, because why would you? We shouldn't be defining anything, right? And that was a very strong way that I felt for a bit, right? When I was coming into terms.
Okay, so she's going to tell a story she tells every time. She is not queer anymore. Here's the interesting part. I remember in the BDSM communities, there was this whole conversation about whether BDSM straight heterosexual couples, cis couples, were considered queer and if they could be part of the LGBTQIA. Again, the LGBTQIA are never going to have the right media to represent their fun BDSM hobbies as something not associated with degeneracy. Heterosexual couples who engage in BDSM get Christian Grey movies made about them and they make millions of dollars. Do you know what I'm saying? We don't get the equivalent in media, but heterosexual Midwestern moms who voted against trans rights will 100% eat up Christian Grey. So again, when queer people do BDSM and when straight people do BDSM, it's a different experience. Like a lot of BDSM people voted for Trump. So I don't know why you guys are sitting here as like straight BDSMers and getting super excited about calling yourself queer when the LGBTQIA community is a specific marginalized community that is suffering a very specific and unique way. Had I just come out BDSM to my parents, that would have been so much more tolerable to them than being gay. I have openly talked about BDSM with my mother. She tolerates that far better than she tolerates me talking about being gay. Okay? So again, being gay is a very specific struggle. Being trans is a very specific struggle. So no, like you can't be queer, okay? You could say you're queer in a derogatory way, like, oh, that queer over, I guess you could say like queer as in weird, maybe not even derogatory, just definitionally. But no, like no, okay? Okay, now look at this video. Here we go.
Trans men can't be lesbians is something I used to think, but I feel that this inherently dilutes the queer experience.
I don't know their pronouns, but they said can't, and then they realized they can.
Queerness is not something to just be put in a box, and it really shouldn't be that serious how someone else identifies. If he's willingly choosing to identify like that, that's none of my concern, nor none of my business. I've seen a lot of trans youth fall down a pipeline of demeaning other people's transness or queerness in a way to have like closeness to cis people. I'm one of the good ones. Like truthfully, if you want to identify as a tic tac, it's none of my business, nor do I care. Really, I think we should just stop caring how people identify and what they choose to do, unless it's hurting themselves or somebody else. Because realistically, it's not gonna hurt you if a trans man decides to use the lesbian label because he experienced girlhood at one point in time, or maybe just feels comfortable with that label. But inherently, queerness is queer, and so it's weird to try and put a box on any of it, which is why a lot of individuals are just unlabeled. And to be honest, same thing about microlabels and neopronouns. It's not that serious. It's not that hard to call someone what they want to be called. It's like human decency, actually.
So, okay, that's one opinion. I will say, Chet said, so the feeling is enough a reason to not identify as queer. It's more nuanced than that. It's more complex than that, right? So when we have conversations, again, I feel like there's like a deep misunderstanding over how layered all of these things end up playing out second to second, day to day. You could have a feeling tomorrow and change the next day. Like most of people's relationship with God is a feeling. And when that feeling disappears and they feel lost because they lost connection to God, like we're having things happen in our brain that aren't exactly tangibly, materially real. Well, actually, they become materially real because we engage in them, but they don't require them to be real in order to become real. So I think the dilemma we're having here is the feeling you're having healthy? And that again goes back to the conversation is, does the internet as a whole, is the world as a whole ready to have a deeper relationship with their biological experience? A deeper relationship, Okay. So then this person said, trans is not inherently queer. That statement can be very transphobic. A trans person can identify as heterosexual and not queer at all. So this is their response to that comment.
Okay.
I don't know their pronouns. I tried to check, but I didn't see them when I looked. So could be he, him, could be they, them. I'm not sure. I'm not trying to misgender somebody.
So there's two things. First of all, thank you. I love to be challenged. I hope that we can have like a nice, helpful conversation with each other. Here we go. So I'm using the connotation of radical, meaning one's existence being at odds with the mainstream of society.
Pause. This is where Kat Black would come in with her work, I think, that we've seen on stream. And she would say, I'm not at odds with the world. Nothing about the way I present is at odds with the world unless they know I'm trans. And I'm saying that alone, though, is the part about you identifying as queer or not queer is interesting. Politically queer, aesthetically queer, technically queer, whatever. And I think there's this whole conversation to be had about the differences between understanding that labels are meant to communicate something. And so when you say, I don't use that label, you're also communicating something. And the question is, are you really communicating what you mean to communicate? And should you be communicating it to the public? Listen, respectful, and I mean this so respectfully, Kat makes too many TikToks. They're all 10 minutes long and there's like 7 a day. It's too many. Okay. I might be exaggerating, but every time I click on a Kat Black TikTok, it's like 10 minutes and I'm like, girl, Okay, we cannot literally talk about co-opting people's time. Like all these TikTokers who make 10 TikToks a day. Do you expect people to watch all your TikToks? Because like, I don't expect you to watch all my clips. I don't expect you to watch all my content. I don't expect you to watch all my streams. You know, if you do, great. I certainly watch people's stuff. Sometimes I watch all of something stuff. But if you're watching 8 hours a day of the same creator, what are you reading? When are you watching other creators? When are you masturbating? Do you know what I mean? So like, we really need to like, as creatives, I don't know if we need to make 10-minute think pieces on every single, right? And again, that's up to you if you want to do that. And I don't expect my audience to watch it all, but I do think sometimes we're just like not, I don't know, we're not thinking about who are we really talking to, which is why I think I might do call-in shows, because I'm like, okay, who am I talking to? Where are you coming from? What do you believe? Because again, we're just talking into the void. I've noticed this with this conversation that's been happening on the internet about biphobia and situationships and everything else. And Gen Z being prudes, everybody's talking about a myth of, I have no tangible concept of who you're posting about. You know, who are you talking about? And so I'm trying to figure that out. Like, who are you guys even talking about? I don't even know how this conversation is happening the way that it's happening. Anyways, okay, let's go back.
Whereas the other definition could be like me acting in a way that puts me at odds with the society, with that society, right? So in that, I mean, like one's existence is not within the scope of cis hetero patriarchal society, right? So that's the reason I say trans people are that, because they're distinctly not cis and usually identify as not being straight. And that puts them inherently at odds with the mainstream world. So I guess another way to look at this is that I'm viewing the label as radical, or just like the state of being as radical, and not necessarily the actions of that person, because we're all different people. That would be too subjective.
Exactly. So I think there's the difference. So I am queer, both politically, philosophically, internally, and externally viewed by the world as queer. When I have this flag on my stream, the amount of like hate comments I get for just having this flag on stream on certain videos, oh my God. You know what I'm saying? Like, that is just something like straight people, non-queer people, they get to exist in. So when Kat gets on a TikTok and every video she makes is, I'm a trans woman, she might as well have the flag there. So for her to then turn around and be like, but I'm not queer. It's like, I hear you, but from a homophobic, transphobic world, you're queer. That's why people are like, hey, why are you trying to separate yourself from us? And then she did use very hurtful arguments, which were like, oh, when I'm at a straight bar, I feel at home. Okay, girl, a lot of us feel at home at a straight bar, even as gay, queer people. Like, she keeps associating queerness with oppression, which I understand from a political perspective, but also it's also a liberatory perspective. You know, Shaheem was talking about this on their TikTok about, wait, Shaheem a they, them, or a he, him? No, they, them. No, he, him? They, them. I don't remember. But Shaheem was talking about this about, in his situation, it was being Black specifically, that being Black for him isn't just about oppression. It is also about celebration. Again, you can have your own perspective, your own relationship with these things. It is personal and subjective. And when we're in community, when we are collective, then the question is, what word are we using together as a collective to be steadfast? Because look, if the heterosexuals are coming in and they're marching through the town, and they're like, you know, bring out the queers. Is Kat going to be like, ooh, I'm not queer? Like, is she going to go hang out with the heterosexuals and be like, I'm actually just an ally of the queer community? That's what I'm saying, respectfully, of course. Because I do respect Kat. This is not a situation where like Brittany Simon and Kat Black don't have to get along. I'm fine with Kat. She can have a different opinion. I just don't understand the opinion. Because what people are upset about is like, when they come for us, Kat, they're going to pick you up too. So when you're having this conversation of like, I'm actually no different than a straight woman or a cis woman specifically, because she's straight as well. And, you know, so again, I hear that. I get it. I see it. I think there's something to it. But I would just encourage all of us to know the differences of how we're showing up. Okay, so then the second part is, and Chad said it earlier, if you're posting that much, you're basically journaling. I do think Kat runs into this, respectfully, problem of just journaling to the internet. And respectfully, we don't need every think piece. We don't need every thought in your head. And that's the other thing is like, we as a collective, as the adults in the room, we don't need younger people hearing every single thought we have. Like at some point, even though we're brainstorming and trying things, look at the way that I did it. And see how it's like not always like a clear space to do it. Sometimes we should brainstorm at home and come to the internet. So like respectfully, I don't know how I'm supposed to how I'm supposed to follow. Like, so maybe the next part of me being an elder, because that's my personal journey, is that eventually I will make content that is so well put together that there's no room for Brittany to go on some tangent in which something. Like I will come to stream. Here's what we're talking about. Here's my points. Thank you for being here. I'll see you tomorrow. And I will have like a show. It won't be perfect in the sense that I won't say something I regret, but it will be better. And instead of just like come and chill with me, like we're not just talking here. This stream is not your relax with your friends stream. This stream is to come here, lock in, learn something, go home. Take it with your home. Take it home. Okay? I don't want to have a stream where I'm wasting your fucking time, you just listening to me ramble. I want you to say, okay, when I log into Brittany's stream today, I'm going to learn something and I'm going to take it home and I'm going to make my life better. Okay, that's what I want. And I think that I think people being upset with influencers and being burnt out on them is so right, because me too. I'm sick of everybody and their mom thinking we need to have every inner thought said to us. Like, girl, I already have a mother who yaps. I could talk to her. I already have a bestie I could call. I need you to decide, are you coming to the internet to show us something interesting or no? Are you struggling like the rest of us? Are you just like in a different position? Not that you have to be perfect. You can be struggling as well, because we're all struggling. But some of us, you know what I mean? There's just something here that I think is missing. So, okay. That creates the Drew F. Wallace situation, which creates the biphobic conversation, which creates everything. I always say this. God forbid my mother ever become a TikToker. God forbid my parents ever become YouTubers. Because you would be shocked at the ignorance that's going to come out of their mouths. Okay? And it feels like when I watch a lot of these TikToks, I just listen to my parents. You guys are so ignorant, it sounds like my parents. And I'm saying, how are you a 35-year-old ignorant person like my 66-year-old mother? How are you regurgitating the same talking points as my 66-year-old mother? Okay? And that's what I think this all gets down to. Okay, let me pull this up really fast. Okay. This video.
She created the term.
Okay, just to bring this home. It says the trans community doesn't get to make up a word for normal. I'm a woman, period. Okay.
She created the term cisgender to not do exactly what you did right here. The prefixes cis and trans have Latin roots, so they're like hella old. Cis meaning on the same side as, and trans meaning on the other side of. Transatlantic on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Cisalpine on this side of the Alps. In 1914, German Ernst Burchard introduced cis and trans distinctions into the study of sexology. The use of the word cis or cisgender in the United States is attributed to Dr. Dana DeFoss in 1994. She created the term cisgender to not do exactly what you did right here. She was looking for a term that would be the opposite of transgender, but didn't want to use a term that would paint not transgender people as normal, because that's cisnormative. Cisnormativity is the assumption that everyone identifies with the gender that they were assigned at birth, and if they don't, then they are abnormal or even inferior. Neither are slurs and neither are offensive, so why do so many cisgender people take offense to being called cis? The creator of the term has some thoughts onto why this keeps happening. She writes, "It is not surprising that those who have garnered dominance and privilege from traditional gender roles feel threatened and compelled to lash out. These ideas are not new, but the word cisgender repackages them in a way that is more potent and visceral. It's easier to attack a word than to address the reasons people feel intimidated by the discussion of gender identity. It's the classic, to those who are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. Me being a cis woman doesn't make me any less of a woman. A trans woman being a trans woman doesn't make her any less of a woman. And if we say that we support women, we have to pay attention to how transphobia affects some women. Trans women, cis women, and trans women are all women." She created the...
Okay, girls, when did that video come out? When do you think she posted that video? Also to the chat who says, I can't stand labels beyond the most basic sense of communicating something to another, feels pointless to me, like they're all subjective labels. I don't understand this reaction either, except I went through this stage, and I'm not saying you're going through a stage, but I actually think labels are so important and they're so necessary, and we must utilize them. We must utilize them with the knowledge that everyone is living in different bubbles and using different labels. Like, labels matter because they help communicate to the people who use those words the same way. Like, I need you to label yourself so I know if you're friend or foe. Like, I need us to have these conversations about labels so we can shortcut signaling safety, because girl, I cannot hear your life story every time I meet you. Can you please summarize it in some labels? I feel like we must embrace the use of label, but respect the fact that it can mean different things to different people. Okay. Because like, I don't want your whole backstory. Just like, are you queer? Yes. Are you anti-capitalism? Yes. Are you a leftist? Yes. Like, okay, then we can start talking. Because like, if you can just tell me really, because you know, you could have a conservative and a leftist both say they hate labels, but that doesn't tell me anything about you. So then eventually saying you hate labels ends up being a conservative dog whistle because they end up becoming the dominant force. You know, this video was made in 2023. Okay, this video was made in 2023 and we're having the same conversation now, which is like, don't call me cis, I'm a woman, right? So when we have these conversations, I want us to be more compassionate, more loving, more nuanced. I want us to say there are billions of people on the planet, billions of ways people are using words, and we are going to be interested in figuring out, oh, how do you use this word, okay? Which brings us into a secondary conversation I want to have about the word objective. Okay, let's talk about that because this is going to be very interesting. Hold on, let me pull this up here. Let me make sure this is correct. Okay, so move this. So over on my second channel, this is my Bert Simon commentary channel, which by the way, FD Signifier was, I don't remember what the clip was about. I think transphobia. And he mentioned my name. He's like, oh, I bet Brittany Simon has a video about when you're gay but not queer. Oh, not only do I have that video, it is one of my best performing videos on my second channel. So please go check out my second channel. It's curated, edited content. I put out every 2 weeks. It's for a different audience. It's definitely not for the stream audience, but at the same time, you could enjoy it. It just depends. Like, what you like to watch. Like some of the people who watch those videos don't like the stream content. Everyone's different. I'm also very different in terms of my personality. Like commentary Brittany is much more like when no one's watching her, she's very much in her autistic monotone. And then like stream Brittany is much more in her I am being witnessed. So it's very theatrical over here. Okay. So I made this video. Men will follow any charismatic man even when he's a loser. I also am doing an A/B testing on the title, so it might change. But this is the video I just put out. I just put out this video. Okay, on this video, I said this. Actually, let's watch it, and then I'll show you the comment. And this is where I just sum up the idea of free will and choice. How much free will can we have if the world is the way that it is? And also, because there's no objective morality, how could I even sit here and say that being a child predator is wrong when there's no such thing as objective morality? It's because I subjectively have drawn a line in the sand and I subjectively am choosing to abide by it. And I do recommend people, if they care about the safety of children and the future of the world, that they also participate in protecting kids, the most vulnerable group on the planet. Because right now the world is so centered on the ego of adults that it really blames children for everything. Okay, so that's what I said. Now this person said, let me bring up the comments, and they were sweet, so shout out to them. Says, hey, I don't get this point. You absolutely can say that objectively it is wrong to be a child predator, and everyone already knows it. There's not a current reality that says being a pedo is correct. Okay, so obviously, I just made this video that shows you over and over again how many people justify it. Like this video as a whole is literally showing you men who are justifying being a pedo. So just like the narrative that like there's nowhere in the world where that's normalized is wrong. But okay, I said, hey, depends on what you mean by objective. There's no evidence outside of human perception that things like this are bad, in quotations. Humans aren't the center of the universe. And so when we use words like objective, we're making a claim that isn't backed by data. Saying something is bad is like saying, I think before it. Nothing can be bad without a being to make that judgment, okay? I said it plays into why humans created God, to give us a being who decided what is good and bad outside of ourselves, but it's just us creating a mirror. They said, hey, it still shouldn't be a point of contention, though. I'm only talking about pedophilia in the context of humans. Animals don't have the same sense of morals that humans do, so they're irrelevant to the conversation. I'm specifically talking in the context of humanity as a whole, and humans, we can all agree that pedophilia is wrong and it comes at no cost. I said, yes, we can all subjectively agree that it's wrong. There are two main uses of objective that people use. One, collective agreement equal objective. Two, true outside of human perception, interaction and impact or impact. I said I'm using the second one because this is a philosophy channel. Objective use in the first context allows G-side, enslavement, and rape to continue. As long as we all agree it's good, it's objectively good. It's why people argue, quote, we all know being gay is a sin, so it's objective, end quote. And we have to push back and say, actually, it's objective, and you're making an objective claim in both first and second context in order to justify bigotry. Guys, do I sound like a Reddit debate bro? Do I not sound like a Reddit debate bro? Look at me go. I said, so when I say evil in quotations is subjective judgment, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm saying it only exists because there's a being who is making the judgment. I can expand on this today's stream. You can come join me. They said, okay, I'll check it out. Hi, I hope you're here. Okay, not to be a debate bro, but when we're having these conversations, you're making a statement that, though it sounds reasonable, is making a claim that requires data to back it up. We all know pedophilia is wrong. Who is we and who is all? Who is we and who is all? Ethan, what do we even know? Who's God, really? Not to be a Peterson about it, okay? But seriously, like, you're making a huge claim because you say we all know it's wrong, but why is Trump president? You all say you know it's wrong, but then why did Epstein get as far as he did? You say we know it's wrong, but why does the Catholic Church praise Mother Mary for getting pregnant at 14? How'd that happen? Okay, we say we know it's wrong, but like we have all of this discourse to show that it isn't. How many times is a 30-year-old man gonna hit on a 17-year-old before we all recognize it's more than okay? Now he's thinking in his head, like everybody does, that pedophilia is only prepubescent children and therefore it's truly gross. But then explain why my grandma was married at 10. And explain why my grandparents were considered legends in the family, even though grandma was married at 10. Explain that to me. Okay, explain to me why nobody will talk about it. And explain to me why everybody justifies it because it was the way that it was. Okay, now explain to me all those things. Go. Oh, wait. Okay, we can't, because at the end of the day, we are making emotional claims because we are emotional creatures attempting to say that we are logical. We're not logical. If we were logical, the world would look a lot different. What we are is feeling creatures, which is not inherently wrong. It just is true. And then we make observations and then we make claims for the observation. This thing makes my tummy hurt, so it must be bad. Could be true, could not be true. You need to observe it afterwards and make, deconstruct it, dissect it, and really understand if that's the right conclusion. Should this make my tummy hurt? Should I feel offended? Is this offensive to me? Same thing with the women on the internet being obsessed about being offended, being called cis. Okay, your feelings are hurt, valid. Let's talk about those feelings. So it really hurts your feelings to be called cis. Why does it hurt your feelings to be called cis? Oh, it really invalidates my relationship with womanhood. I just feel like I am a woman. I was born this way. This is just who I am naturally. The label is unnecessary. Okay, why do you think the label exists? Well, the label exists because, there's like this trans ideology. Pause. What's trans ideology? Well, there's like a group of people pushing a narrative. Pause. What does pushing mean? Well, they're just like constantly out and proud about themselves. Pause. Why is it wrong to be out and proud? Well, children are looking. Okay, why is it wrong for children to be looking? Like, every single thing you say has to be pulled apart and understood, right? Now, earlier in chat, because we just finished talking about labels and how labels are necessary forms of communication, I think somebody in chat said, okay, so chat said two things, right? You said, unfortunately, labels alone don't signal safety or safe people. I know people want to be able to trust them, but they're just not. Okay, and then you said, especially when considering neurodiversity, people can interpret things wildly different. Often office politics taught me that. Okay, let me see. And then I read, chat said, a lot of people do not feel that way. They fit into labels, though. Label flatten the nuance of an individual who chooses to not identify with anything else. I'm going to label you both as curmudgeons. How about I label both you chatters as tone deaf or not paying attention, not listening, not observing, actually not being nuanced? Because I'm trying to communicate something to you. Now, you might say, okay, Brittany, that's a little harsh. I tried to explain something where I gave a very specific example. And you went, actually, there are 8 billion people on the planet. The way I use words and the way you use words are different. So when you say, right, oh, but Brittany, this, yes, congratulations on saying what I just said to you. Why are you saying what I just said to you back to me? Yes, there are 8 billion people on the planet, and you're having a specific relationship with labels, and you don't get to dictate what everyone else is having with labels. If they don't work for you, great, you were taken into consideration with my initial statement. Now, are you going to take me into consideration with your statement? Are you going to say, you know what, Brittany, I can see the safety in labels, and you're so right. Sometimes it can be so helpful. Obviously, a person can use a label incorrectly. Obviously, I'm talking about getting past the hello, how are you, to at least getting to the conversation where we can start talking about real shit. And then we can see if the label you've chosen is accurate for the label that you used. Same thing with the word objective. Oh, it's objectively wrong to do X, Y, Z. Who is making that statement of objective? What do you mean by objective? Okay, there was a little, here, we'll do a little test. Okay, if I click my phone on right now, it's on the blank screen. If I click it on, will it turn on? Yes or no? And how many of you are willing to make a bet on your life that it will turn on? How many of you are willing to bet your life that my phone is charged or hasn't died and will turn on? Okay, we had this conversation in the Discord. It turned into a huge fight. This was years ago. It was a long time ago. Okay, and there was two groups of thought. The first group was like, obviously it's going to turn on. And I was on the side of, obviously it might turn on, but we don't know if it's going to turn on. Okay? So when we have this conversation of, I know it's going to happen, you are making a bet that's based off probability, not certainty. Okay? What if I'm the kind of person that lets my phone die all the time? You guys don't know that about me. Maybe I'm the kind of girl that lets my phone get to 2% and then die every time. You know, there are people who go to bed without putting their phone in the charger. What if I'm one of those people? Right? Let me just make sure I'm not. There we go. It turned on. Okay. Here we go. It turned on. Okay. But I don't know that it was going to turn on. But the point is we make decisions every day off the probability in hopes that it turns out. I hope you stop at a red light. That's the probability is you will. But when a person doesn't and it causes an accident and someone dies, you're now having that experience of having that experience. Okay? So when we have conversations, we have to be very careful about this idea of how much you're holding on to the probability. And I'm always interested in both things. And no, that is not a Chapel Roan. It's an art piece that I found and I really liked. Okay. Let me see. Okay, just wanted to make sure I didn't accidentally dox myself somehow, but no, there's nothing on there. Okay, Chat said that was years ago. I remember like it was yesterday, years ago now. It was years ago now. Isn't that crazy? That's what I'm saying about memory. That conversation in the Discord was years ago now. Years. Okay, it was so long ago, you know? Chat says labels are fine, but if you want to use them, but they are not at the end of the day, the end all be all of evaluating people. I think we were just discussing, not disagreeing. But I never said that. How could you disagree on something I never said? That's what I'm saying, Habibi. I never said they were at the end all be all. So you're agreeing with me. How are we disagreeing? That's what I'm saying. You listened to me say words and you said, I think we're just discussing, not disagreeing. Okay, hold on. I think we're just discussing, not disagreeing. But then, wait, no, you are disagreeing. Because you just said, so why are you saying what I just said? This is what I'm saying. You know, again, Shaheem was saying, I watched a lot of the videos recently, but they were saying that basically, like, are you guys like purposely misunderstanding everybody? Are we purposely like misunderstanding? Then why wouldn't you say, absolutely, this is my experience as well? Why would your initial statement be a disagreement statement? Huh. Well, that's the whole point of the work. We're all in different bubbles and we hear things differently. And when you guys type out on a stream, it sounds like you're saying it's not a disagreement, but I don't know how it's not a disagreement. Unless you're just, so you're saying, you said a lot of people do not feel that way. They fit into labels though. See, you just did it. A lot of people do not feel that way. They fit into labels though. Labels flatten the nuance of an individual who chooses not to identify with anything. You're making a statement. You're making a judgment statement. Labels flatten the nuance of an individual who chooses not to identify with anything. What? And then let me see. They said, yeah, this is a different person. Labels are necessary to communicate with others, but I don't use them for myself. That's my point. It does not mean you do use them for yourself. Are you a human? When you say you don't, Chad said, I didn't mean to disagree. Sorry if my language is imprecise. It's not the imprecise. I don't want you to apologize. I want to understand how we got here. Like, okay, to the person who said I don't use labels, do you not call yourself a human? Do you call yourself any gender? Do you call yourself a redhead? Do you call yourself person with hair? Do you call yourself bald? Do you call yourself like, what do you mean I don't use labels for myself? Or do you have an ethnicity? Do you have what do you mean I don't use labels for myself? Right? Like, explain that to me. Right? So when you say like, I don't use a label, you're not saying anything profound. You're actually saying something like, it sounds profound, right? I think we've all gone through this stage of being like, I don't use labels. Okay, it sounds profound, but it's actually like absolutely not. It's the opposite, you know? Yeah, what if you fill out forms? What labels do what labels? Yeah, what labels do you use? If you if I'm dating you and I say, "What is your gender?" Do you go, "I don't have a gender"? I mean, that's fine if you don't have a gender, I guess. Okay. Right? Chet said, "I stand by what I said. I'm not doing it to disagree or argumentative, just to discuss." I mean, stand by what you said, right? If you want to stand by it, right? Chad said, Brittany is reenacting me fighting for my life in comment sections. I think people don't know how to write yes and statements anymore. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's what's happening with all of this conversation, which is what's so frustrating with the conversation. Is but it's also the most exciting part of why we are the way we are as a humanity. Because why can't you write, "Oh my God, yes, and..." But then I do that in comments and people still don't see it. I go, "Absolutely, and then people still don't see that I'm doing it. So it's the way that they're reading the words. So it's you can't, even if you did it, you would have to have another person who's well read to process that information, right? Discourse said, "Agender for the win, agender for the win, girls." Okay. Jet says, "It sounds profound, but it's more like I only consider these things as labels and I don't use them for myself, so I don't use labels." Yeah. Chet said, "The internet is making us fight because we love fighting." I know, and we do, don't we? Right? I mean, look at this comment. I love the idea of arguing what is objectivity, what is subjectivity, just for this person to say everybody knows being a child predator is wrong. If everybody knows that's true, then why are people doing it by the billions? Billions! If everybody knows child predatory behavior is wrong, then why is it happening? The numbers that it's happening, right? Right? Why is it happening? Right? Chet said, "I'm mixed race and gay and of sorts. So I literally don't fit into any on forms. I literally just say I prefer not to say." Okay. Are you doing it again? When the chat is saying, "What do you put on forms?" They're not trying to attack, or we're not trying to get you in a gotcha, right? We're trying to say "Oh, interesting. That's so interesting." Okay, but how does that play into your real life? When you're communicating with people, are you religious? What about your diet? What do you eat? What words? Yeah, mixed race and gay are labels. Thank you, chat. Mixed race is a label, as is gay. You're right. You know what I mean? Yeah, I agree. I think mixed race is a label. It's a very specific label too. It can be very political in certain bubbles, right? So yeah, when we have these conversations, I see it, I get it. And also, right? Oh, great point. Chat says, "Hang on, knowing something is wrong doesn't mean it will deter a person from doing something wrong." Actually, great point. Great point, chat. Exactly. So to this person who said, "It is wrong to be a child predator. Everybody knows it. There's not a current reality that says being a pedo is correct." It's yeah, but then if it's so wrong, why are we doing it? Because it's not enough to say that it's wrong, which is why it has to be embodied, right? And then on top of that, I think this original person is making an argument that because it's objective, we know better, but we don't, right? Discourse said, "What would be the difference between abolishing labels and abolishing language?" That's a great question. What is the difference? I don't want to use labels. I don't want to use language. Labels can feel like a okay, I think everyone's getting PDA triggered. That's my theory about human beings as a species. I actually think all of us have a pervasive drive for autonomy. And because it is so pervasive, it is literally making us argumentative. Okay? That's what I think. I think human beings, all of us, the most Republican, the most hateful, are actually just children in adult bodies desiring to be free. And so we just hate everybody because we feel trapped. But some of it is self-inflicted and some of it is community inflicted, and most of it is just a biological experience, but not a biological experience like TERFs would say, not a bioessentialism reason, but a socialized reason. I think all of us just want to be free. We want to speak uncensored and be understood. We want people to read our minds, because God, that would save me some time. It would just be so easy if I could just take what's in my brain and give it to you guys. You guys go, "Oh," and I'm like, "Yeah," and then we're all just chilling. But I can't, right? I have to communicate and communicate and communicate and communicate. And then every new person who comes in, I have to communicate and communicate and communicate. And we get tired. And then we go, "You know what? I'm going to go meditate in the mountains because this is too much." And then we got to come back, right? Okay. So I understand it. You understand it. I was just thinking about my lockdown days and some of the things that I was like really going through, and how my politics and my philosophy are always impacted by what I'm going through personally, and then taking responsibility for how that shows up on the internet. And it's really hard to explain to people that I see everybody else as like, what are you going through? What's up with your life right now? What are you doing? Like, how is your life impacting your politics? Because it is. That's why Trump administration is making you so stressed, so you can become more bigoted, because it's exactly how it works. Okay. Zabubafu, thank you so much for the super chat. Appreciate you so much. I love that little icon. I love the little icon. Okay. So when we have these conversations, I just want us to be like deeply compassionate and loving through this process, and understand that like it is sort of ironic how bad we are at communicating, which is why it can feel so magical. Like, I'll tell you this, one of the reasons my relationship feels so magical, even though I know it's not literally, right, is that I don't have to explain myself too much to my partner. Rarely. Like, on occasion, for sure, we will have moments where I'm like, why aren't you understanding this? Like, you're reading my mind like normal. And I'm like, okay, we have to have the conversation. And then we have to like go through language together. But it is like 10% of the time we are communicating to each other, okay, like this. 99% of the time, or 90% of the time, I don't even have to think about it. I could use the words. Sometimes my partner and I don't even use words. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, hey, did you see? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, and then this? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, and then this? And I'm like, woo. And then I swear to God, that conversation would have taken us an hour. We could do in 10 seconds sometimes. You know, and then it's just like, and then it's a full conversation. It's like a shortcut. I'm not saying we want that every time. I'm just saying sometimes it happens because there's no miscommunication, there's no confusion, there's no, you know what I'm saying? And so again, when we have these conversations, okay, and it's not meant to say like, oh, we're better than you, or we're not, you know, you're worse than us or something. It's to say that we're having a different experience, and, you know, labels and communication, they come in handy in different ways, okay? And then, you know, the thing about a label that is so interesting, or it's also a validating experience, like I said before, for somebody to be able to see you. Like, I think people forget that some people, okay, so conservatives will weaponize this. They'll say, oh, you just want to be different, okay? And then it will look like, oh, I want to be seen as gay or trans or queer or something, because I want to be different. But what you're really doing is you want to be seen for who you are, which happens to be different. And it's not even that different if everybody was honest, but because it's perceived as different, it looks like you're trying to be different. And look, a lot of us are trying to be a lot of things. But you know what I think we're all trying to do? Live our life. And it's going to be messy and confusing, right? And so when we have these conversations, words matter, labels matter, and they matter as a point of communication. That's how they matter. Okay. But I think when you say things like, okay, who is this? Okay. So if you're in a conversation with somebody and they go, how do you feel about politics? And they go, oh, I hate everybody, dude. Everybody's so fucked, man. Like, you know, like everybody's got problems, you know. I really think like the most balanced you can be is kind of like take the good from the right and take the good from the left and kind of meet in the middle. Who's that? Who is that? What label would you put on that person? Generally speaking, they like specifically, they think there's some good Republican policy that's important. Okay. You know, Chet said, I'm worried they're centrist and I'm not scared. They are a libertarian, a centrist. Okay. So like you guys get the indication. Now, what if I said this? Hey, how do you feel about the political climate? Oh, you know, we just really got to dismantle this stuff. We got to work on it. You know, Democrats truly are the new Republicans, but, you know, it is what it is. We got to move as far left as possible. We got to work on dismantling capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy. Like, it's just so necessary that we work on dismantling these systems for the sake of everybody. If we could only work together, like, that would be so great. Okay. Chet says leftist, progressive. Okay. What if I was this person? Okay. Who am I here? Hey, what do you think about politics as it is? Oh, man, both sides really suck, huh? It's just like everybody's in it for their money. Everyone's corrupt. Politicians are evil, bro. You just know how it is, man. They all fucking suck, you know? It really sucks because America's so good, you know? If they just did capitalism right, you know what I'm saying? But these Dems, they're always in the way, man. These Democrats, they're so busy being like popularity contest. You know what I mean? Like, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you got to vote with the guy who knows what he's doing. And you know who knows what he's doing? A businessman like Trump. Almost had you there, chat. Conservatives love, they love, you know, a neo-lib, a populist, a misogynist. No, all of them, honestly. It could be anybody. That one cousin. It could be, listen, I don't even know at that point what label you need, girl, but it's stupid. How about that's the label? Like, you just know there's always that guy in the family. I got about a couple of them who are always just like, oh, you know, everyone really sucks and there's so much money in politics, but you know, I got to vote for Trump because at least he's a business guy who knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, sometimes why labels matter is because the people who are trying to hide from their conservatism will play with these words and play right in your face. Oh, you know, I don't really care what gay people are doing for sure, bro. Like, I'm cool with gay people, trans people. But we got to get the economy back on track. So got to vote Trump. You know, it's like, okay. Versus if you just like, if you can scare somebody away with labels, then scare them away, girl. You know what I mean? I used to think not. I used to think like, no, the labels are going to like miscommunicate who I am. Girly, if I use the word leftist and it scares you, bye. If I use the word anti-capitalist and you're like, bye. Because honestly, if the label scares you away, I don't need you to get to know me before you judge me. Bye. That's the other part about labels that's helpful is maybe you feel like a label doesn't convey the nuance of who you are to a person, but I feel like why should I convey the nuance of who I am to you when you're so bigoted that my label will make you run away anyways? Bye. Okay? That's why I use my labels, because if you're like, you know, if you're like offended by the she, him, they, their, they, them, theirs, them, you know, whatever, bye. Like that's it. Okay. Now, I will say I am very privileged that I have healthy friendships with healthy people that are uniquely open to the uniqueness of your experience. I am very lucky that I have healthy friendships with people that would be like, oh, can you tell me more about that? I am so glad that I have friends who saw me go through some of my weirdest, Brittany's sounding a little like conservative, but like in a weird way that's confusing. I don't know what's happening. And they just watch me go through the motions and swing back around because, you know, I was, you know, in a moment. And I'm so lucky that I am ultimately surrounded by people that are constantly learning, constantly reading, constantly watching documentaries, constantly trying to be better. And by conservative, I don't mean Republican. Like that's, mind you, in my bubbles, anything even liberal is conservative. Like if you start to sound like a liberal, they're like, hey, you're sounding conservative. So I don't mean that I ever hopefully sounded like Republican. It was not like I was going to vote for Trump or something. It was more like, you know, because even at that time when I was like super anti the Democrat Party, it was like a mode of being where I was like, anyways, shout out to my friends who really understood the journey. You know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying about the conversations we're having here on the internet with these words, subjective, objective. We're having an experience that's real and we're trying to convey the experience and understand it deeper. And then we're trying to communicate an experience that's also kind of happening. You know what I mean? And this is the difficult part of sort of being a person. You know how your family stops seeing you as a growing person because you're like that 15-year-old kid in your head, right? That's how people in your community are too. That's how people on the internet are. They'll never see you as more than that guy you were 20 years ago. Or, you know, the church people are like, oh, that's the rebellious kid in the family, you know? And so you just got to keep that in mind. That's why, girls, I hate to say this to you, the friends who grow with you and get through the hard moments with you and see you in the most present, those are very rare. Shout out to my longest lasting friends. It takes a lot of effort and work to grow with a community. That's why most of you will switch communities every so often, as you should if you're growing. If you are growing as a person, yes, you will have new friends every 10 years or so. If anything though, and this is my relationship with friendship, I don't have new friends every 10 years. I have individual friendships with people, and some last longer and some don't. But the ones that are close to me, the ones that have made it through all of these changes, they're individual friendships. They're not groups of friends. Okay. I outgrow communities. I really have some of the oldest friends I've had in a long time, but like I usually outgrow communities more. So even you could talk about words, interchange the label friend with community. Friend group with community. I think that's appropriate. Like the friend groups I was in, the communities I was in, I outgrew those every 10 years or so. Every 5 years probably or so. Yeah, I would say every 3 to 5 years, I probably outgrew a friend group. Okay. Which is not the same thing as outgrowing individual relationships. Those are a little different. Okay. Which is why I take them more sacred. Okay. Let me scroll up. See. Let me see. Let me scroll. I feel like I saw some questions here. Yeah, Chet said labels aren't one-to-one representation of people, but they're sure a starting point to which we can apply critical thinking for sure, right? Chet said 99% of people will never unlearn indoctrination. And where's this commenter? They write weird. Stupid, a toxic gatekeeping community. When you say 99% people will never unlearn indoctrination, and I think you wrote and are stupid, you're making a claim that would include yourself. What indoctrination are you fighting right now? Or are you the 1%? I agree that like 90% of people are not indoctrinated as much as they are just like comfortable. You know what I mean? But 99% and you think you're part of the 1%, I highly doubt. But I think like maybe 90% are comfortable and 10% are making waves. But those within that 90%, they're also making little waves. So the way that I look at the world is like this, and I'm thinking about making a new levels video, honestly. But if you have a world and let's say like 90% of the world is like this, and then you have like pockets of the world that are like making moves. Okay. Along those rigid or along the blue of the most of the world, there's also little pockets of people doing this within their own communities. So maybe they're not like going all the way, but you know what? It's one thing that leads to another. You know what I mean? So that's how I would look at the world. But like, just because you're maybe in the red community doesn't mean you're better than the blue community. It means you're having a different relationship with experience, right? So I think that's different, right? Chat said it's called the intelligence spectrum. Are you eugenicist? Are you a bit of a eugenicist? Do you believe in IQ? What's that mean? You got like 145 IQ something? What's that mean? Why are you in my community? What are you saying? What are you saying? It's just giving eugenicist, you know what I mean? It's giving white nationalist. It's giving Stefan Molyneux, you know, it's giving YouTube 2009, 2010, you know? I don't know what you're explaining. I don't know what you're saying. I might need to block you respectfully. Okay. Chess, I believe ethics is an always evolving conversation. We want to grow off the good stuff of our ancestors gave us and continue the conversation so we can make it better for the future people and for the present people. Absolutely. Right. Chat said I talked to people for about 30 seconds and 99% just look at me dumb and walk away. Do you think maybe it's your attitude? Do you think maybe you're off-putting? Do you think maybe because you seem grumpy? I don't know, bro. You seem kind of grumpy. I think people forget, like, socializing is a social game. It's a social interaction, you know? You seem a bit grumpy. Predator is wrong when there's no such thing as objective morality. It's because I'm a strong... Oh, sorry. I closed all my tabs and I had to reopen all my tabs. And then everything just became messy. And then everything became messy on my screen. No! Hold on. Oh, I boomered so hard. Oh my god. I boomered so hard. Okay. Okay. Do we get anywhere with this chatter? Brittany, I love the English accent. I lived in England and that was perfect. Oh my God. Thank you. Did we get, let's see. Yeah, I just think having the attitude if I talk to people for more than 30 seconds and people just look at me like I'm dumb and walk away, that's like crazy. Yeah, I would just like reframe that. I would reframe it as I'm having interactions with people in which there's a miscommunication happening, and I'm going to do my best to communicate in a way that signals safety and we're able to have a better conversation moving forward. And again, like, because if you start to internalize this idea that like everybody else is stupid, but I'm not, then you are living in some version of a delusion, because it's just statistically improbable that every single person you're talking to, this is happening, and it's not a you thing. You know what I'm saying? So just like, you know, I used to like, listen, as an autistic girly with philosophy special interest, obviously everyone always tells me, you're thinking about this too much, because they're not thinking about it at all. But the truth is like people are thinking. They just are never asked about it. And then when they're asked about it, they didn't realize how much they weren't thinking, but they're still thinking, right? You have to have the faith that people are trying, even if people aren't trying to the degree that you are, because the degree to which you are trying, if it's predicated on ego, is not much more trying than they are, because their ego is what's keeping them from not trying. That's why debate bros on Reddit become like really narcissistic and big ego people, not NPD, just like very in their own ego. Because they're like, I talk about important stuff. And it was like, you remember that clip? You remember that clip of, what's his name? He's like, can we just talk about like serious stuff, bro? Can we talk about the climate? What is his name? Jaden Smith. When he was like, can we just talk about serious stuff? It's like, yeah, I went through that stage too when I was a younger person, where I was like, hey, I want to have a serious conversation about serious stuff. But what I was really dying for was someone to tell me that there was more than the conservative bubble that I was being raised with. You know, there was hope for me to stick around, you know? And so I get it. You know, you're just like, I really want to talk about this thing. Where can I find community? Well, you do have to go find those people. Actually, wait, let me answer this question really fast I got. Let's see. Question. Let me go find it. Give me a second. Okay. So I got this question. Close this. Okay. They said, hey, Brit, I love your work. Watching people like FD and you talk about the world genuinely gives me hope for humanity in dark times. This convo sparked two questions for me. It was the maybe we're just bad at thinking clip I put out. It says, can you talk about your stance on electoral politics and voting? I'm in my 20s trying to figure shit out, and I keep coming back to the voting question. I am a rebel leftist girl at heart, but reporting has opened my eyes at how different people view the world. I'm a journalist, and I'm talking to average voters in quotations, especially older folks, because that was the premise in the TikTok we were covering. They express great disappointment with the fact that younger people on the left are not voting. I find that people my age reject the system entirely. I'm wondering, how can we build the coalitions on the left when we're so divided on the issue of reform versus revolution? Two, can you talk about talk about direct action and mutual aid? I adore your content, but sometimes I feel stuck in my phone. I recently deleted social media in an attempt to reconnect with my actual values and interests outside of algorithms. I want to go to the next level and find community, find ways I can directly help people who need it most urgently. Any advice on getting into community organizing? That would be awesome. Thanks. I'm actually not the greatest person right now to talk to because I don't know what the current climate is. But in my 20s, when I was involved much more with like political communities and everything, it actually was like super easy. But, and this is the hard part, the reason I got discouraged out of those communities was because I was in a journey of learning to radically accept people for they are. So in my 20s, the way I would get involved, this sounds so like easy in hindsight now. I don't know what it's like for you guys now because I'm not involved directly outside my house right now. But I would just literally Google queer activism Seattle, and Google would pull up organizations. I would call the organization and be like, yo, do you guys need some people? And they'd be like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, where? And they'd be like, Saturday, 10 a.m. Dope. And then I would just show up. And that's literally how we would start. And then they'd be like, we're cleaning up streets this day. We need signatures for Planned Parenthood. We're protesting with BLM, but we need people to show up the next day and clean streets. I'm like, okay, I can do that. And that's what I would do. There was also, I would either date people or know people in my community. I'd be like, hey, are you guys going to any, like, is there anything you're doing right now? And like, I dated this person who was really into climate change. And they were like, oh yeah, there's a protest happening about climate change. You want to go with me? I'm like, yeah, let's go. And then I would just go. And I think the just going part is the hardest, but simplest part of going. And I think that that's what I always recommend to you, because it sounds really strange and so uncomfortable, but you just go. You show up and you say, hey, I'm here. I'm ready. And then people will put you to work. Now, here's where I got discouraged, but please do not let this discourage you if you're in these groups. The drama exists everywhere. So no matter what group you are with, there's going to be drama. There's going to be gossip. There's going to be fucking. People are going to be fucking, getting into drama, dating, breaking up, talking shit behind each other's back. Make sure you still show up for the protest. And I was getting so annoyed with how unethical everybody was in their own personal life, but the drama follows people no matter where we go. So just accept that there will be drama and just do your best to, like, you know, keep it in line to the best of our ability. But people are looking for volunteers. People are trying, you know, Discord, meetup.com, local mutual aid groups, community gardens, toxic people in spaces. Yep, exactly. So don't let it discourage you. You know what I mean? Don't let it discourage you, but know that it can be as simple as Googling and as difficult as going. And that's how I would think about doing it. Now, in terms of the first question about voting, girl, I struggle with this all the time. This election season has been really hard for me. I don't like to talk about voting because, again, I'm not a political YouTuber. I'm not as educated as other political YouTubers. I watch my leftist YouTubers for this. I try to figure out what they're doing. Who are they voting for? What are we looking at? Because I, again, with peace and love, I think the hardest part about being an informed voter is that it really is a full-time job, and I refuse to let anybody tell me otherwise. As somebody who used to be in politics and I knew everybody's name and who was running and everyone's assistants, guys, it was a full-time job. It's a full-time job to be Hassan Piker, to be Sean the Black, to do all of these things. Like, I know people don't think it is, but there's no way you know all these people's names, all the policy, everything they're doing, everything about, and you're not taking a full-time effort to do it, okay? So I rely on those people to kind of give me an idea of what I can aim for in terms of information. But it's really hard, okay? Hold on, let me pull my notes, okay? Ah, okay, chat, okay. Chat says, when I first started watching you, I didn't originally understand your I don't do politics stance, but the current election cycle has completely made me reevaluate and understand what you've been saying. Look, it's a full-time job to be locked in. And if I'm locked into politics, guys, I can't do philosophy. If I'm locked into politics, like, I can't hang out with my family or do other things in the way that you think. Like, I am trying to balance what I need to do in my community. And I do think the work that I'm doing is life-changing. And I think it's important. Not everybody needs to do politics. Some of us need to do philosophy. Some of us need to do garden. Some of us need to do art. Yes, it's all political, 100%. Yes, 100%. Okay. But there is a difference between being educated in political policy, which I don't ever like. Look, as much as people talk shit about Hassan, the guy's in the weeds. Okay. The man is in the weeds. And I'm not going to take that from him because I could not do his job. It stresses me out. Okay. I already tried. I thought I was going to be a political person. I thought I was going to be one of those people, but I just get burnt the fuck out. I get burnt the fuck out. So the right people need to be doing it. Those are the right people. Are they doing it to the best of their ability in the way that I would hope? You know, but I can't, it's not me. I'm not that girl. Okay. So, I would love to live in a collective society that the right people we trusted let us know who to vote for. I think the hardest part about Hassan as an example is he does encourage, he like half encourages people to vote and then also doesn't encourage people to vote. But he also like, he confuses even the way he, like when I look him up to say like, who should we vote for? I'm always confused about the way he's communicating it. Because sometimes he's kind of a harm reduction voter, which I think is necessary to win politics, but I don't think I'm in that place anymore. Guys, I voted for Kamala Harris as a harm reduction voter. But this time around, I wouldn't vote for her. I kind of think like, yes, young people should go out and vote, but the truth is like, I don't think, and I still think that was the right choice, by the way. I do. I think that election was really important. And I think she would have been a better of the two evils. But I also think that the problem with voting at that time is that it was incredibly anxiety inducing for everybody. It's like, get up and vote, get up and vote. Hey, look, Kamala Harris is running. And we were all like, oh, okay, let's like figure this out, right? But I couldn't do it now because you know what? Though I think it would have been better with her, I don't think it would have been, this is the part that liberals hate hearing. I don't think it would have been much better. And I know all the leftists get major flack for saying that, but we're talking about as a system, the status quo would have stayed. Kamala would have been in for 4 years, and then it would have been a Republican again, and nothing would have changed. Like, all that Trump is doing is taking advantage of his position. We're not going to slow it down by putting Kamala in, right? Kamala was just going to be another 4 years of waiting. You guys wouldn't have done anything. And then a Republican would have gone in and still done the Trump thing. The 2020, like Project 2025 would have been happening, right? So when leftists say like it wouldn't have been different, on the scale of 30 years of politics, it wouldn't have been different. So again, like I'm not saying that 4 years wouldn't have made a difference. I'm saying in terms of 30 years, I'm not sure that it would have mattered. Okay, but with that said, this time around, it's much harder to know who to vote for sure. I think this time around, it's a little bit more frustrating, especially if we're like, I'm representing state of Arizona, and I'm just like, who the fuck are we voting for in Arizona? You know, it's just like, what am I doing here? And we don't even know who's running yet for the presidency, and it's all very confusing candidates. Like AOC, who? Like, what are we doing here? So it just feels very confusing, I think, the whole thing. So I think it should feel difficult. I think it should feel frustrating. I think you should feel frustrated, right? And we're frustrated at the Democrat Party for this reason. Like, why aren't you giving us candidates we can vote for with our full chest? Because they're Democrats, you know? So yeah, I get you. Okay, now let me scroll up. Okay. Chet said harm reduction isn't getting us anywhere, and people get stuck in those cycles where they don't vote their conscience in primaries because they're so worried about winning the general. Yeah, well, I think that's the dilemma is like politics is about winning. I think to be fair with Kamala and Trump, I think like that election was very specific, like Kamala or Trump, like which one are you choosing, right? It's like, okay, I can understand why people whose states were already going to go for Harris voted third party. I get it. I get why Arab communities didn't vote for Harris. She didn't deserve their vote. I get it. I think that there was like a we need to win attitude, and I still think that can be valid. Again, this goes back to language. This goes back to queer, subjective, objective. This goes back to this whole thing, guys. When I say harm reduction, are we talking about the same thing? Because Republicans also think they're harm reduction voters. Oh, do you guys know this? Oh my God, do you guys know this? My whole life growing up, my parents are harm reduction voters. Do you know that? Betsy, we have to vote for the greater of two evils or the less of two evils because that's all we can do. My parents are voted for Trump as a harm reduction voter. I'm just making sure that people know that. Because I don't know if you know conservatives are also unhappy with their candidates. They just have to do it and put on a smile. You know what I'm saying? And so what they do is they jump in and they LARP even harder. They go, we have to vote for Trump. Yeah, my whole life, every election was harm reduction. You know what I mean? From their point of view, chat, exactly. You know? From the point of view. Yeah, because they think they're all evil. Like my parents think Trump is like evil, but he's the best evil. Because like maybe God's using him for good or some shit, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or maybe he's going to vote for something pro-life, right? Let's see. Chet says, I think Hassan is too much of a content creator to be extremely clear. Bro, that is absolute. I think it is stopping him from saying things with his full chest. He's afraid. But he's not afraid of the US government. I think he's afraid of his audience. I legit think he's afraid of his audience. I do. I think he's afraid in the way that every person is afraid socially. It's scary having thousands of people give you think pieces about you. I don't blame him for being anxious about that. You know what I'm saying? I don't blame him, but I think he's afraid of what he's built crumbling down. He's too attached to the outcome. You know, but you know, he's a political guy, not a philosophy guy. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Hold Hold on, let me scroll up. I feel like I missed some good questions maybe. And if you guys have more questions, ask them now because we're going to switch topics and this is going to be a long one. Let me see. Yeah, chat said I do my best to educate myself, but I'm not an expert. I think informing ourselves in a way that is accessible to our lives is a fair expectation for voters. 100%. I think as a voter, as an adult, if you're going to cast a vote, I would ask that you have like some idea of what you're voting for, you know, versus a blind voting, which a lot of people do. A lot of people I've met, adults, go, "Oh, my parents fill out my ballot. I just sign it." Which is what that TikTok was about that we watched last time I was on stream, which was like realizing that a lot of voters are just voting with what, like, hey, what are you guys voting for? Which, by the way, is not technically wrong. It's not wrong for us as a collective to say, hey, who are we voting for? That's kind of how voting works. We collectively move it in a direction. The dilemma is when you as an individual trust your mommy as an individual to say, mommy, who are we voting for? Your mommy? You are mommy? Versus saying, hey, mom, as a grown-up, as a person who's lived longer than me, as a person who knows some stuff, who are you voting for? Versus, mommy, can you fill out my ballot? You know, this is different. This is different. These are different mommies. And then there's the other mommy who spanks you all the way to the ballot box. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, it's different. That's a different mommy. Okay. Chess, I'm not gonna lie, I look up progressive voter guides for my district and just trust for most things. I mean, I get it. Though, what are you gonna do? I get that. I do get that. You know what I mean? Chess says I do talk to my parents about who to vote for and I do research. Yeah, I mean, like, trust your parents to be good community members if they are. But, and also don't let your, you know, don't be like, oh, I don't even know. My mom filled it out. I just, you know, signed it. It's like, uh-oh. You know, yeah, Chet said relying on every single person to stay on top of politics to vote accordingly to everyone's best interest is a bit unrealistic. Look, everything's unrealistic. Can we be honest? Like, everything about our expectation of others is very unrealistic. So this is why I say I practice deep radical acceptance of we are being so unrealistic with what people are as a animal species. Like, we're so unrealistic about people, which is why I say, like, how much free will and how much like logic can we all be utilizing in this discourse if everything is so, like, our version of ourselves is so idealistic. I even said it in my commentary video that I just posted. Like, there is no leftist utopia that we're building towards. Not that we shouldn't dismantle these systems of oppression, but there's still going to be you at the end of it. You and your problem. You got an attitude and everything. You have trauma and problems. The idea is we're trying to make the system work in favor of us. So when we're in the middle of those problems, we don't have to lose our job, our healthcare, and become unhoused. That people are able to have things in place to help them because, yeah, we're a problematic species, you know? And so that's the big part of it. So to that chatter who asked that question, I'm glad FD's work is speaking to you. I'm glad my work is speaking to you. But ultimately, there's nothing really special about getting involved in your community. It really starts with showing up. And that's just whenever you're ready. You know, whenever you're ready, Google it, start volunteering, asking people. Everybody needs help. You know, everybody needs help. Food banks, protesting, cleaning up streets. Like, if you know a big protest is showing up, you can say, like, do we have volunteer groups? Do you guys need water supplies? Do you guys need food? Like, it just depends. You know, it just depends on what you're able to do at the moment. Okay? I hope that helps. You know? Okay, let's go ahead and get into this topic because it's going to be a bit of a long one. I'm not sure how long, but longish. Let's see. So this story happened. You guys asked my opinion on it. A surrogate mother fights with biological parents over the care of a baby born with a severe heart condition. Let's look at the news story and then we'll get into it.
Mounting in Texas after a surrogate mother gave birth to a baby with a severe heart condition. The intended parents in California reportedly wanted to terminate the pregnancy after learning about the diagnosis, but the surrogate refused. Now Texas Attorney General has stepped in. CBS News correspondent Jason Allen has more.
Alaskan nurse McKenna West has turned to doctors in Texas to try to save the newborn child she carried for a California couple.
It was scary to think that something might be wrong and that I may be the one that's not able to make a decision about the treatment.
West spoke about the unusual surrogacy situation with Live Action, an anti-abortion rights organization. Her pregnancy was on track for 20 weeks until doctors diagnosed a rare and severe heart defect in the baby, who she's calling Gabriel. After learning of the defect, West says the parents, Nashin Gilkar and Omar Ahmed, asked her to schedule an abortion. Parents with medical prerogative is something experts say is a common clause in the surrogacy contract she had signed. Instead, West decided to find treatment in Dallas for the child after birth. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton stepped in to ensure it this week, securing an emergency order to make sure doctors provide life-saving care.
But my understanding is that the arrangements are being made for him to receive that surgery.
Courts in Alaska, California, and Texas are considering the case. But for now, Texas law governs the welfare of the child, according to Professor Rachel Reboucher.
It's a complicated situation where we're looking at intended parents who ultimately and probably will be the parents, but because of Texas intervention, will not necessarily get to make this decision about what happens immediately after birth.
Parents and their representatives, but we have not heard back. The agency that connected them with the surrogate told us in a statement that they support the rights of both parties in this case. Typically, a child that is born with this severe heart defect needs a series of surgeries, and the first one needs to be within a couple weeks after they are born. Michael?
Jason, considering all the medical care this baby needs, do we know who's caring for the baby right now?
The short answer to that is it's the state of Texas. When the state of Texas stepped in, there was an emergency order that was issued that appeared to recognize that the parents in California are the intended parents of the child with decision-making powers, but those powers don't extend or supersede the state's responsibility to ensure the life-saving care for the child. So after McKenna West gave birth yesterday, her attorney told us she was not allowed any contact with the child, has not been allowed to see him since, and it would be the doctors and nurses that are in charge of providing that life-saving care. She now intends, her attorney told me, to pursue custody of that child, and so this case is going to go on in the courts while that care for the child is being provided.
Whoa, messy, messy, messy. Oh my God. Hold on. So that's not good. So I hope that baby's being hugged and loved. I'm concerned that that newborn just came into the universe and isn't getting the affection it deserves. I hope they're not just being treated like a random patient, you know, like a object or something. That worries me that neither the bio parents nor the surrogate is being able to care for that child. Two, it's interesting because I guess she's fighting for custody of the baby because she figured, well, you were going to abort the baby anyway, so I'll have it. But I'm confused because isn't that baby like the biological parent's baby? So their DNA, so like their, you know what I'm saying? So there's layers to this. Now, you guys know I'm not a big fan of surrogacy because I think capitalism ruins everything. But something as, in my mind, forgive me for using the word sacred, as bringing a life into the universe, for it to be commodified this way, for it to be utilized this way. This is why the health industry, something that should be a dignified process for all people who deserve healing, is now this like commercialized, capitalistic, objectified system, right? That's how I feel about surrogacy. I'm not to say that there isn't a wholesome way to be a surrogate, not to say that there isn't a good way to be a surrogate, but the way that surrogacy is being utilized, this idea that like people need money or I'm going to pay you to use your body, like, oh, hello, girls. And then we're talking about agency. So obviously you can't force a woman to get an abortion. That's really fucked up. And second of all, I can understand why the bio parents are so upset reasonably because they feel like what's happening here. But I think like that should have been a conversation we should have had. And or again, even if you have the conversation, you cannot force a woman to get an abortion. So just a reminder, it is her body and you shouldn't use her body unless you realize she was gonna. Now, the interesting thing is she went to Texas because she's pro-life. So she's not a pro-choice person. She's not making a pro-choice decision. She's making a pro-life decision, which is why it became very contentious because it became a pro-life the pro-life movement grabbed onto this. They did an interview with her. They used her as an example of like how evil abortion is. And I think that's the dilemma. The dilemma is now it hasn't become the agency of this woman is allowed to have an abortion or not, or she shouldn't be forced. Now the conversation is abortion is bad, which is such bullshit. So, but before we dive into the interview with her, I found this from 7 years ago. This is not a new phenomenon. Look at this. Surrogate mother refused abortion. Look at this.
Her case made national headlines, but until tonight, you've only read the words of a surrogate mother who refused to have an abortion.
A year later, she's finally ready to tell her story, and she's sharing it with WFAA's Teresa Woodard.
Writing is therapy. For a year, she kept her anguish private. But Stephanie LeVake decided it's time to share.
What's the year been like for you? There's been a lot of mourning. There's been a lot of heartache.
December 21st, 2017, Stephanie gave birth at Medical City in Dallas. 16 weeks into her otherwise normal pregnancy, doctors had discovered a serious heart defect in the baby. Stephanie was a surrogate. The biological parents ordered her to abort their child. Stephanie and her own twins, who'd been on every step of her surrogacy journey, had heard the boy's heartbeat many times. They believed he was strong. She refused to have the abortion.
You know, before you proceed in caring for a couple, you discuss your beliefs on abortion. You have to have really hard conversations. I thought we were completely on the same page. I had no idea that if something did happen, that we would be so divided.
Months of legal and emotional turmoil followed. Moments after she gave birth, hospital staff allowed her one quick peek at the boy and then whisked him away.
I don't know his name. I don't know how much he weighed. I don't know if they chose to do surgery. I assume they immediately took him to NICU, but even then, I do not know. I do not know.
To this day.
To this day.
A stark contrast to her two previous surrogacies. Both so perfect and joyful, she remains close friends with the families.
It is the most beautiful gift you could ever give.
That's the experience she believes surrogacy is supposed to bring. So she's launching a crusade to protect it. She wants more clarity in written contracts to protect everyone involved. And she's contacting legislators, hoping they'll rewrite abortion laws so they don't just apply to a woman carrying a child, but to the child's biological parents too.
I was given a voice for a reason. I was given a platform for a reason. And because of all the heartache that I have experienced, I know my story's not over because I cannot end on heartache.
So she's writing a book about joy. The joy of giving families a baby they never thought they'd have. The joy of giving a voice to a baby she'll never know. Teresa Woodard, Channel 8.
Interesting. Chet said, oh, I don't agree with her having her kids involved ethically. Why attach them to a sibling they'll never have? It's not related to her, right? Surrogacy is using an embryo and an egg of the couple that hired you, typically, I think, and impregnating it into your body. So those are not her siblings, right? Those kids are not related to that baby as far as I know. Now, I assume they cut off contact with her because she refused to have the abortion, which I could understand. Like, you guys had a very contentious moment. I do think she has good intentions in terms of wanting to give people an option, but I think it's very strange, right? I do think it's a little strange to not consider the birth parents' desires. Chess had agreed. I don't think her kids will understand that. Oh, I disagree, respectfully, of course. I think kids, if you grew up around pregnant people, which I grew up a lot around pregnant people a lot, I understood a lot as a kid. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm projecting. But like, I grew up around pregnant people my whole life. You know what I mean? And it was very clear, like, whose baby was whose and what was happening. And like, I think her kids would understand, like, if you explain to kids from a young age surrogacy is a thing, they won't think it's weird. So if she's already had 3 babies via surrogacy, the kids won't even know it's weird. It's kids who don't grow up around it that don't get it because they don't have any language for it. But I think, like, if I explain this to my kid, it's like gay people or trans people. Right? If you explain it to kids when they're young, they're going to get it. They're already having thoughts. Like, when we played dolls as kids, we thought about having babies and, like, you know, I think they would get it. Like, I think they would get it. But I think you'd have to create a culture that allowed them to get it. They're probably not meeting a lot of people that argue with them over surrogacy. So, you know, there's probably that. But I would say that there is something really nice about this idea of, like, giving people an option, which I think can be beautiful, which actually plays into this story out of Australia, ABC, about gay couples, other couples. Like, what would you do to have a baby? The problem is it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. So it's not just like a beautiful collective, like, natural thing that people are doing. It's a business. And that becomes a problem. Have you guys ever had those conversations with people that are like, I don't have money, I might sell my eggs? I don't have money, I might be a surrogate. Yeah, so, like, again, survival surrogacy is weird to me. Survival egg donation is weird to me. Survival sex work is negative to me. Like, we don't want to be doing these things out of survival. That's why they're called survival. That's why they're negative. We want to be able to do these things for the love and the joy, which is a privilege everybody should have. So if I'm, like, out of the privilege of my being a surrogate, that feels very different than I'm a survival surrogate. You know what I'm saying? Okay, look at this. I don't know if we're going to get copyrighted, so we probably won't watch this whole thing, but.
How far would you go to start your own family? Even though we've tried different ways and options of having a baby, nothing worked out.
They're desperate to grow their family. Some of them have long histories of infertility or pregnancy loss or cancer treatment, and I think we can all feel sympathy for that story.
The surrogacy industry is worth billions of dollars.
Starting at around $100,000 per child is a realistic cost.
But here in
$100,000 a child.
Australia, it's illegal to compensate surrogates for their time and the risk.
When we look at labour that is traditionally considered female labour, women's work, it is often devalued.
I think it's exploitative to expect a woman to work for free while everybody else makes money off her back.
Supporters view the practice as a modern and miraculous way to have kids.
I'm just wanted and loved. I'm not a transaction at all.
But critics warn it grooms and exploits women.
It never occurred to me that I could back out of it. That would be refusing to allow them to have a child.
And turns babies into commodities.
It really can't be separated from the sale of children.
So can we minimise harm without curtailing freedoms? And is our
So there's like this whole conversation happening. I do think we need to be very careful because of capitalism and patriarchy, us not playing back into some of those very specific, roles, and not to mention the white supremacy of it all, because how many of these surrogates are people of color whose bodies are being utilized in such a fashion? How many of these people are poor or don't have options? I'm very concerned that people in wealthier positions, if they have $100,000 to spend per kid, are picking people who need that money. And just like if you look at the world the way that it is, it's very clear that under white supremacy, capitalism, and patriarchy, there's a very specific group of people who generally will be at the receiving end of being picked. And then what are we doing? Okay. So I am very concerned with this, and I think we should be from a system perspective. Again, when I say liberate yourself from the system, this is another good example. I'm going to use this example from now on because I think it really hits for people, but like, I'm not going to wait to come out of the closet for my family not to be homophobic, right? I got to liberate myself. Okay. Secondary to this, if I was a person in a queer community and I genuinely wanted a kid, and there was an option and it was wholesome and it was good and it was thoughtful and it was from like truly like people wanting to give of their own volition, not someone trying to make money and me not trying to pay for money, like a child, I could see that liberated from the system, that happening. That's going to be rare because generally speaking, human beings are definitely not in that position. It happens, it exists, and I believe in it. Okay. With that said, I am concerned that people are spending $200,000 to get pregnant, $100,000 to get pregnant. And I'm not saying your children are less. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm saying this also plays into the system, convincing you that you should be doing this. Because again, it goes back to this idea that like you ought to have kids, you ought to be parents. And it's like, this is the only mode we can be parents. Now, before surrogacy was so popularized, of course, we had adoption, and adoption is also tied to trafficking. A lot of the parents want their children, but can't afford to keep their kids. So they put them in they put them in adoption centers. They give up their kids globally, hoping their kids have a better life. Instead of the government's coming around and housing, feeding, and educating these people, we give up our children. When I was in Arizona, and I was thinking about adopting children, I went on the adoption website in Arizona and I looked up, of course, like disabled queer kids, because obviously, and I was reading these kids' profiles and their parents all wanted open contact. They wanted to be with their kids, but they couldn't afford it. And I kept thinking like, why am I taking your kid from you? I'm so confused. Why wouldn't the system just give you the money to support your child? And some of these children had medical care needs that were uniquely expensive. Okay. And that's the other part of the system coming at play, is the medical system being so ingrained into capitalism, being so corrupted by capitalism. Like, why in the world am I taking your kid from you? 1, 2, why is it costing us money? And 3, like, what are we even talking about? So again, when we have these conversations, I am deeply concerned. It's like this controversy that happened in Korea. Was it South Korea, where a bunch of the babies who got adopted out to Americans, they thought they were going to have contact with their kids. They thought they were going to be able to see their kids, and they didn't know. And these parents waited 30 years to see their kids again, when the adult children finally came to the realization of like, oh, my parents wanted me. My parents wanted me. It's like, this is like such a complex situation. So yeah, I think we have every reason to be very concerned with this whole industry as a whole. Okay? I think we have every reason to be very suspicious. Okay?
Do you need a change? Well, we did explore things in Australia, but based on current rules and legislation, it's pretty challenging.
They're impossible because they have to be completely altruistic, so there is no financial gain other than covering the costs of the pregnancy, essentially.
Oh, interesting.
But they also have to be over 25. They have to be under 40 years old. They have to have had their own kids already.
We've always wanted to have a family. Kids have been a big part of our lives. We've been foster carers, we are uncles, and it's just something that we've always wanted to explore beyond that for ourselves.
We had a lot of people say, not maliciously, but kind of ignorantly, did you look at adoption? And those people guaranteed have never researched adoption, especially international adoption. It's basically non-existent now in Australia. The wait lists are decades long.
Is it maybe because it's also trafficking? Is it maybe because of the ethics around? See how he automatically went like, it's impossible to get kids from other countries. Ugh, I just want to buy a baby and they won't let me. Do you get what I'm saying? We've been so ingrained in thinking we're doing this great thing by going to other countries and taking their babies away from their land, away from their culture, away from their people, to bring them over to our land, our culture, our thing. Like, we're not even thinking about the way we're taking babies from their land. Like, it's such a James Baldwin has this great quote. Fuck, I'm going to botch it again. He has this great quote. There are people that colonize the moon, and then there are people who dance underneath its sprays. Something like this. I'm a dance underneath the moon kind of girl. And then there are people who colonize the moon, you know? And I'm just saying, like...
And there's thousands of potential parents per child. And so surrogacy is really the only option. And for us, international surrogacy was the only option.
Look, I'm sure see, international surrogacy. Ding, 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 ding. Listen, I'm sure these gentlemen are nice. I'm sure they're great dads. I'm sure these babies will be super loved. But they are products of a system that is ingrained and brainwashed us into believing that, like, one, we need to have kids, and two, this is the only way we can have kids. And I just think there's so many things at play here that, you know, we're not even close to figuring it out. But oh my gosh. So exactly, of course it was international adoption, like, or surrogacy. You just knew it was. Now, here's the thing I want to take us to, because I think this is important. So Lila Rose, that pro-life lady everybody knows from her debates, she on Live Action, which is a pro-life organization, interviewed the surrogate mother in Texas who recently came up. And I just want to watch some of it with you.
I was carrying the baby for had decided that they wanted me to terminate the pregnancy.
You're in a legal battle fighting for your son's life.
I could be facing over 2.
Oh, see that? Your son's life. So the surrogate mother is doing something I think genuinely unethical. How in the world are you calling it your son? What's that about? It's your son now because they wanted to abort and you didn't want to? Interesting. Interesting language to be using when you knew you were never supposed to keep that kid. That's why some people are saying that she never intended to give up the baby. Some people have a conspiracy theory, I'm not saying it's true, that she actually wanted to get pregnant and she did this on purpose, and then she specifically fled to Texas in order to keep this baby. Do I think that's true? I don't know. I can't read this woman's mind. But do I think it's absolutely questionable that she's utilizing, or Lila called it your son, but like she agreed. Okay, the baby's Gabriel, he's a boy.
$100,000. They get to make all of these decisions trying to force an abortion. I didn't think that I could live with myself. This is my body and I absolutely don't want to go through this. Nothing was scarier than questioning my own soul and knowing what would happen to this baby boy if I...
McKenna, thanks so much for being willing to do this interview with me.
Thank you for having me, Lila.
You are currently 35 weeks pregnant and you're in a legal battle fighting for your son's life. Before we get into the details of what you're dealing with right now, can you share how you got involved with surrogacy and what made you interested in the first place?
Yeah, I first started thinking about surrogacy. I was a newly single mom of 2 and I work as a nurse, but I didn't want to have to find another full-time job and sacrifice time from my children. I had heard about surrogacy. I had really great easy pregnancies, and I felt it would be an extremely rewarding thing to do for a family to give them the blessing of a child. And so I started looking into it.
Walk me through what at this time balance was looking like for you, being, like you said, a newly single mom. You're working as a nurse. That can be long hours. What was your schedule like?
I worked 3 12-hour shifts, which are long days. And my days off usually are kind of filled with recovery or spent with my kids. And I didn't want to lose more time with them.
Tell me about the matching process that you went through with surrogacy and what made you feel like the family that you picked was the right family for you.
Going into it, I wanted to carry for a heterosexual couple with infertility. That was kind of my
sounded a bit homophobic.
Ideal family to carry for. And once I got through some of the preliminary stages with the surrogacy agency, they were able to show me a profile of a couple, and I read about them. They sounded lovely, and so the agency then shared my profile with them, and they also wanted to meet me, and so we set up a video call and got to know each other a little bit. The chemistry felt great. We were all really excited to start this journey, and I felt so excited to be able to give a couple who had faced years of infertility just the blessing of.
Super chat from Mr. Holiday, thank you so much, says, to me, you signed the contract, it's not your baby. Yeah, if she wants to adopt the baby after the fact, then it's her baby. But the state of Texas has custody over the child right now, so it's a little confusing. I'm a little confused about her motivations. She sounds conservative. Maybe the family is also conservative. I don't know.
Their own baby.
What did you hope that the experience of carrying this baby would mean for your family and for your future?
I wanted to provide me and my own kids more financial stability and just protection in that sense. I wanted to just do something somewhat selfless and meaningful. And this
selfless is a funny word. I don't know if that's technically what it is. I have her at 1.25, by the way. So yeah, I'm not sure that that's the right word for what is happening.
Felt like a way to do that.
How did the pregnancy go in the first few months? And what did it feel like to be watching the progress?
The pregnancy was going very great. I was having weekly ultrasounds for the entire first trimester, and from the beginning there was a heartbeat seen, and then a couple weeks later we could finally hear that heartbeat, and he was growing great, and there was no complications. All genetic testing was low risk. Like, I felt great, and yeah, it was an exciting time.
Was there anything even small that started to shift between you and the intended parents before the diagnosis came?
Intended parents is crazy.
There was a small shift I feel like I picked up on just once I became pregnant. It felt different than kind of our dynamic when I wasn't pregnant. Communication slowed down a little bit and things felt a little bit more distant, especially after that first trimester. And I was just receiving routine prenatal care at that point, which is every 4 weeks. And so there was very little communication between appointments at that point.
Hold on. Chat says people are pushing her to take stance on political issues. I just can't see this as fair to anyone. She went to a conservative pro-life state to avoid getting an abortion for a baby that wasn't hers. She's at work. She's working. And I'm assuming they wanted an abortion at the proper window time. And then she went and she made it political the moment she got into Texas. The moment she moved her butt from, I think it was Alaska to Texas, she made it political. Because who was politically protecting her in Texas? Pro-lifers. So now she, and then she said she wants to have a baby for a heterosexual person. She's making it political.
And we had disagreements on the provider that I was seeing, and that caused some tension, and that was kind of...
Chet says because they wanted to force an abortion on her. They didn't want to force an abortion on her. They asked her to get an abortion per their contract, per the understanding, right? And then she was confused or / they didn't talk about it properly. But yes, I agree that. So initially it wasn't a forced abortion. They're like, oh, hey girl, can you get an abortion? Like the baby is going to have problems and like, we're just not ready to handle that. And she was like, no. And they're like, wait, what do you mean no? And then because she said no, now they have to aim to force an abortion on her because what else are they going to do? And I'm not saying that's okay. I'm saying this is the situation that ends up occurring, right? It's like devastating all around, but she should not have, and she cannot continue to do surrogacy in a situation in which she's not willing to get an abortion if that's a part of the expectation or reality. Like, okay, new scenario, girls, okay? The surrogate couple doesn't want her to get an abortion, but she's risking her life to have the baby, and if she doesn't have an abortion, she dies. Is she allowed to have the abortion? Okay, that's a new scenario, hypothetical. Is she allowed to have the abortion to save her own life, even if the surrogate parents are like, no, you can't have an abortion? Yes, right? She can have the abortion because they can't ask her to risk her life. Even though, what if the couple was pro-life and said, no, what you signed up for was a pro-life pregnancy, which means you have to risk your life for this baby. And she said, well, I changed my mind. Fuck yeah, change your mind. Because she has the right over whether or not she does with her body in that situation. So yes, we understand that no one should be able to force an abortion on her. I agree with you. And I think it's really fucked up of her to live in an delusion. Maybe I'll be wrong with this timeline, right? Maybe I'll be wrong, but I do think something about her thinking was inappropriate, that she didn't allow herself to have an abortion in the appropriate window, assuming there was one. Because like, what are we talking about? Why wouldn't you get an abortion? Okay, when did you decide you're pro-life all of a sudden? Right? Maybe she was pro-life. I'm not saying legally, I'm saying morally. I'm saying ethically. I'm saying her moral obligation to the situation would be to have an abortion at the appropriate window, assuming that's how it happened. I'm hoping that they give us a timeline that corrects us, because maybe they wanted her to get an abortion at a weird time or something. Okay? So again,
the first time I was wondering, like, man, I hope, this still turns out okay between us. And I hope I still get to have a relationship with this family and this baby once he's born. Because that was my intention too, was that we would be a part of each other's lives.
Was that something that you discussed before starting the surrogacy process, that you would be a part of each other's lives?
Yeah, and we both agreed that if it kind of developed naturally, that we were all okay with that route.
Again, I see you guys being so empathetic in the chat, which I love to see. You're saying, I think it's really hard for a woman who wants to have a baby to get an abortion. Right. That's why when women have abortions, it's hard. Okay. That's why when pregnant people have an abortion, it's hard. Like pro-lifers like to convince you everyone's having a great old time getting an abortion. Lots of women who want their babies have to get abortions. That's why it's hard. Not always, but most of the time, when people are weeks into a pregnancy, they thought where they were taking to term, and they get bad news and they have to have an abortion, or it's a stillbirth, which is an abortion. The word abortion does not mean to terminate a pregnancy alone. The word abortion also includes stillbirths. It's going to be hard, right? So we know it's difficult all around. The implication of what's happening here, though, is this woman is doing something that does feel wrong, because she could have been able to communicate this to a very understanding couple. Why hasn't she been able to communicate that? Why didn't anyone take it into consideration that it would be a hard situation? And why is she literally in a legal battle with the couple? Why is this happening? Do you know what I'm saying? And why is she calling it her son? Why is she saying Gabriel is her son? And I'm using it as a generalized for the pregnancy, but it's a boy. Why is she calling him her son? If she really has good intention and she really respects this couple and she really just had a hard situation happen, that's why people are saying she's kidnapping this baby. Are you kidnapping this baby? Because why are you kidnapping this baby? Now, I understand that there's another situation where the surrogate might be left with the baby. Like the bio parents find out the child is disabled and doesn't want the baby. Some of those parents abandon the child with the surrogate. That also happens. Is that this situation? Because it sounds like the bio parents want Gabriel. And she's saying, you can't have Gabriel. He's my son. What? If the bio parents want the baby, it's their baby. If they're willing to sign over custody to her, fine. But if the bio parents want their baby, what is she out here calling Gabriel her son for? Right? Like, what?
And based on our conversations, and I had met with them at this point twice or 2 to 3 times, it felt like there was no reason why we wouldn't be a part of each other's lives going forward.
How did your children feel, and what were you able to tell them about this new pregnancy?
I told my son, who's my older child, from the beginning, before I was pregnant, that I was thinking about being a surrogate and what that meant, and I was gonna carry a baby for another couple. This baby wouldn't be coming home with us.
Okay.
And he said, "That's cool." And my daughter was quite little. She's only 2 now, so doesn't quite understand. But he likes to talk to my belly and talk to the baby, and yeah, he was excited.
Yes, exactly, chat. From my understanding, the controversy with this case is the bio parents want their baby. She's fighting for custody. That's why this case is so fucking weird. That's my understanding. Maybe we can have a different, but that's what the news channel said. We just watched the news cover the story, and the news said the bio parents want their baby, but the Texas state is holding it hostage because of the pro-life laws, because of the surgery. Right? So that's what I'm wondering. Like, how can Texas keep this baby away from their parents? And Texas is saying, because you wanted to abort your baby, you're not getting your baby back from the state of Texas. But they're in California. Do you get the line of thinking pro-lifers are weaponizing right now? Pro-lifers are saying it's no longer your baby because you wanted an abortion. And I'm saying that's not how that works. You can't take people's babies from them because your surrogate made the baby, like, brought it to term. You know what I mean?
You take us back to the day when you found out something was wrong.
And by the way, this is 3 weeks ago. She's had her baby. It's in the state of Texas. The state of Texas has custody over the baby. This is 3 weeks old, this interview.
And what do you remember about that moment?
Oh, and his bio parents named him Rumi? Oh my God! That's so racist. Because they're Indian, right? They said they're Indian, or I forgot what they were. They're not, what are they? They're not white, right? So they named him Rumi, and she named him Gabriel? Smells of white supremacy. Smells of white. And I say this as this lady is brown right in front of my face. Black? What is this lady? She's from Alaska. Is she the Alaskan? I don't know what the Alaskans call themselves. She's not a white lady, but what is happening here? Am I confused?
Yeah. So halfway through the pregnancy, when I was 20 weeks, a little bit over 20 weeks, I had the anatomy ultrasound. And this was the first ultrasound I had had in 8 weeks.
I'm sorry, chatter. You said I also feel weird to not call her baby her son. Didn't the baby use her blood, her calcium? It's in that baby. I'm also not calling it hers. It's just such a complicated transaction. It's not that complicated. Damn. It's not your baby. You gave birth to a baby. You were a vessel. You were an incubator. They used your body like an object. That's why people don't like surrogacy. It's not your baby. It doesn't have it's not your egg or sperm. Okay? It's not your baby. You had this baby for somebody else. Okay? So again, when we have these conversations, I don't think it's that complicated. That's why that's why people don't like surrogacy. You were used as a vessel. The baby is inside of you. Yes, I don't know why you would choose to do this, but if you did, it's not your baby. That's it. So again, like, this conversation feels very weird to me because it feels like, yes, you don't know as a human what you're going to go through. You don't know what hormones are going to get attached to. You don't know, like, what biological experience you're going to have, right? I 100% see that. But that's why you need counseling during the term. That's why you need love and care. That's why you need a community through this process. That's also why people don't think it's a good idea. Because you don't know, you getting attached to a baby that isn't yours is too complicated to do something like this. But I don't think it's that complicated, right? Like, it is, but it isn't really. Because how do you live with yourself taking someone's baby away from them? Like, that's what I want to know. How do you go to sleep at night knowing somebody is crying into their pillow because you took their baby away from them? How do you live with yourself knowing you've kidnapped a child? That's what I see this as. You've kidnapped somebody's baby. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's the weird part of this. And the fact that the media is calling the baby Gabriel, or the conservatives are calling the baby Gabriel instead of Rumi, okay, which I guess is the parent's name. I'll Google it really fast to make sure. But you know what I'm saying?
And it was a morning appointment. Went in, I had the couple I was carrying the baby for on FaceTime for the ultrasound. And then following the imaging, the doctor came in and she told us that there was something wrong with the baby.
Yeah, okay. According to this article, CBS News, a baby born with a rare heart defect is the center of a dispute between a surrogate and the parents underwent the first in a series of surrogacy. Okay, the baby whose parents have named Rumi was born Wednesday in Texas. Okay. So Omar Ahmed and Nasheen Gilkar said the baby's medical team, this is the attorney for the parents. Okay, so yeah, they're definitely not white. And they named the baby Rumi, but now we're calling the baby Gabriel because she decided the baby was named Gabriel. What are we talking about? You know?
Baby's heart. That the left side of his heart was not developed as it should be, that there was very little blood flow going through it. And that I needed to be referred and seen by a maternal fetal medicine specialist for a diagnosis and further evaluation. It was really emotional, very unexpected, and just hard news to hear because everything had been going so well with pregnancy, with all the previous ultrasounds. And yeah, it was scary to think that something might be wrong and that I may be the one that's not able to make a decision about the treatment.
How quickly did things change with the...
Are you a pro-lifer? Do I have a pro-lifer in chat? Is that what's happening? You said, I agree with you that having wanted to abort your child during the pregnancy, but the baby was born anyways, doesn't magically make it not your baby. But the nuance of her having saved him, it makes it tough. She didn't save the baby. You said she feels like it's a right to their baby because she's the only reason the baby gets to live. Are you a pro-lifer? You're making a pro-life argument in my chat. She didn't save the baby. That's not what happened. This is a pro-life talking point. The baby wasn't it. That's not what what are you doing? What are you doing in my chat? You know what I'm saying? Like you're using a pro-life argument. If the abortion happened at a reasonable time, the baby wouldn't have been viable. Okay, the fetus would have been in progress. And that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? Bringing the baby to term, letting it bake, okay? If they had had the abortion when they did, it would have been a half-baked cake. It wouldn't have been a cake yet, okay? So when we have these conversations, okay, you're being weird using the word saved, right? It doesn't make sense to say that she saved the baby. She didn't save the baby. She kidnapped the baby, brought it to term. She kidnapped the fetus, brought the fetus to term, and then attempted to kidnap the baby. That's more or less what's happening so far. But I'm willing to change my mind. But that's what's happening. Chad said it's not a pro-life argument. The baby would not be here in the world if the surrogate listened to the parents. No, the baby wouldn't be here in this world if the parents didn't hire the surrogate. Okay? If the parents didn't donate their egg and sperm, the baby wouldn't be here. Okay? This baby is here because he has bio parents who attempted to bring him into the universe. Okay? She is not the reason the baby is here. The baby is here because those bio parents existed in the first place. And their parents had their baby. So I don't know how far back you want to take it. Okay? But you are absolutely arguing a pro-life argument. Okay?
Intended parents after the diagnosis.
They changed quickly. I had that scan on a Friday, and
okay,
the
let's
only
see.
communication that I had after that ultrasound with them was the next day. I asked if it was still okay if I sent the ultrasound pictures, which I had always done previously. I would mail them if I was still able to do that. And I was told that I could, but that they had already taken down the only thing that was on their fridge, which was those scans from 8 weeks ago when I was 12 weeks. And so this was the following day after getting the diagnosis. And that was kind of the last that we communicated. From that point, everything started going through the surrogacy agency.
Oh, and by the way, guys, you don't need a reason to get an abortion. You don't need to tell people why you're having an abortion. Crutches and Spice made this TikTok about this situation. We don't need to know why you had the abortion. The disability is not the reason we need to know anything. It doesn't matter if you had the abortion and the baby was perfectly viable. Okay? None of that needs to be said. I don't need to know the details of your reason for having an abortion. Thank you.
When you ended up talking to the specialist, what did they recommend? And did they share if there were any solutions to the heart defect as it was perceived?
Yes. So the maternal fetal medicine specialist, he diagnosed the baby with hypoplastic left heart syndrome. And the treatment for this diagnosis is a series of heart surgeries, one of which needs to be done within the first, typically, week of the baby's life. I'm from Alaska, and we don't have the necessary specialists in the state. So with this diagnosis, it would require I relocate to a state that has a hospital and specialists who could perform this surgery. And so that was his recommendation, was that we look into a center where I could deliver him safely and where he could receive this life-saving surgery.
Did they share with you and the intended parents what the outcomes of this surgery might be for the baby?
He did mention the outcomes. They're quite high nationally. Babies receiving that first surgery have an 80-85% survival.
When you learned that, were you encouraged? How did you feel when you learned that with the right surgery, there could be an 80 to 85% chance of survival for the baby?
I felt hopeful for sure. I knew that it wasn't a death sentence of a diagnosis. I personally know somebody whose daughter had the same diagnosis, and she's going to be 16 soon, and she's doing well.
See, this is the pro-life argument, though. Again, I'm pretty sure my cousin had the same condition when they were a baby. They had heart surgery right out of birth, basically. Again, this is why abortion conversations can't be about the viability of the fetus. Right? Like, this is why this whole conversation about surrogacy is kind of fucked, right? But I do think, like, this is a distraction. Like, if I was in a debate with somebody over abortion rights, this would be a distraction. Okay. Now, Chad said, I think it's unfair to put all the blame on this woman when two rational adults decided to put a woman through this, expecting to treat her as an object, and now act surprised when she's acting like a person. Okay. I hear you, and I think there's some validity to this. Yes, she is acting like a person. A person with a fucking plan. And that's the part that makes her a bad person. Because if she was a good person, she'd be able to communicate with this couple and they'd be on the same page. There's something insidious about her desire to work with these pro-lifers, these Trumpers, this administration, go to Texas, work with Republicans. Again, I don't know anything about this couple, but if this person was working with this couple and thought for the safety of this child and this couple, they are the priority, then why are you acting like she's not hanging out with fascists? Why are you acting like she's not doing a literally collaboration with one of the most infamous pro-lifers who debate taking agency and rights away from women on a constant fucking basis while utilizing my body, my choice in this instance? Why are you not seeing the political, like, maliciousness of it? Okay, now, are the pro-lifers using this woman? Maybe. Maybe this woman is being used both by these surrogate parents and these pro-lifers. Maybe, right? But, like, do not forget who she is talking to right now. This would be equivalent, y'all. This would be equivalent if I was going through a hard time. And at this stage in my life, 2026, the people I went to for comfort and coalition was, give me a name here. Insert conservative talking head right here. Jeffree Star, Leo Skepi, Blair White. Ariel Scarcella. It would be like if Ariel Scarcella showed up on my stream to talk to me about sexual assault in bathrooms. And instead of the conversation being sexual assault in bathrooms, I brought the most turfy transphobe of our life onto my stream to talk about the safety of women in bathrooms. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand? Okay, it's not good. Just because she's on your side doesn't mean she's your friend. Okay, that's what this is. I'm saying there's something about her decision to work with these people. Now, if she was talking to a feminist group, if she was with a women's group, if she was with Democrats, if she was working with the parents, we could have this conversation. And I wouldn't be looking at her funny. It's who she's collaborating with. I'm not saying she's not a person. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying this isn't difficult, but why don't we have a therapist? Why don't we have a community? Right? Okay. Chet says, why does she not want to have her own kids? She does. She has 2 kids. She already has 2 kids. She's a single mom with 2 kids. Okay. And apparently she wants a 3rd one. And now I'm just like, they're not Pokemon, girl. You can't collect them all. Okay. So
It's not the easiest road. There's things that can happen, but I knew that this baby boy that I was carrying, that I was feeling move, that he deserved that chance.
What was going through your mind in the hours and days after hearing the diagnosis?
Okay, so chat brings up the other question, which we kind of covered at the beginning. This is not pro-life versus pro-choice argument. This is workers versus employee arguments. Just because conservatives are taking advantage of her desperate situation doesn't mean we should play their game. Fine, we talked about this at the beginning. You can't legally force an abortion on a person, period. We agree, okay? Yeah, we already talked about that in the beginning, okay? You can't force an abortion on a person. But from an ethics perspective, she's wrong for not getting that abortion. She is wrong for not getting that abortion. She did an unethical thing because that's what she signed up for when she was an employee. And yet I understand that it's very difficult to then keep, I understand that it might have been hard for her. And that's the part of this process I'm trying to explain to you. This is why I say be very careful about the positions that you take, because you're going to have to do things you might not think about. This is why I don't engage in politics, because I would have to do unethical things to make and survive in politics, right? That's why I say be very careful. Now I understand this might be, she's already been a surrogate, by the way. Oh, no. Wait, that might have been the other lady. Has she been a surrogate before? No. I think this is her first family. So maybe this will be her big awakening, never to be a surrogate again, right? I'm not a fan of surrogacy. Okay, I'm not a fan of surrogacy. I think it's like we don't have regulation. We can't keep people safe. I'm not a big fan of it. Okay, I'm not a big fan of a lot of these buying children systems. Okay, but she is more than fine to take this couple's money. She's more than fine to make it a business. And she's more than fine to now kidnap this child, call it her son, and give him a new name. That's fucked up. Is that an employee-employer situation now? Do your employees steal your kids and give them names? No, I think we're dealing with 2 very separate issues that are overlapping. Okay? So remember that. Remember, she is not making an employee argumentation. She's making, this is my son, and I'm going to give him my own name. So just be very careful with that, okay? But I hear you. I do think there's a conversation to be had about the employment part of it.
It was a very difficult weekend, week, all of that. The time afterwards, being the surrogate, I knew what I would do and what choice I would make, but I felt that I didn't have a voice in this situation. And so that caused a lot of fear. And I was just very emotional. I was looking up stories of children who had this diagnosis and how they were doing, how they were living. I wanted to fill myself with hope. And again, personally knowing somebody with it and knowing she's doing well. But I just felt out of control of the situation because I was carrying this baby for another couple.
Feeling like you knew.
Okay, hold on. Chad said 2 different conversations. I don't think it's unethical to not abort because of contract. I do think it's wrong to take a public stand she's taking about abortion. I don't think it's inherently wrong to not get the abortion. I think it's wrong to kidnap a kid, take him across state lines, give him a name that wasn't his, and to keep him from his parents. Okay? Because remember, you guys are like, don't have a conversation about somebody who's not on screen. Stop doing that. I've given you real examples. We're looking at a very specific situation. I give you very specific situations at the beginning. Stop making up hypotheticals for a person that isn't in the fucking room. Okay? This woman in this situation signed a contract, made a decision. If she had the best intention, she would have been working with the parents. Okay? Okay, so don't give all these amazing examples of all these, of course there are nuance, there are gray areas for different situations. For this situation, in the way that it was, okay, listen to her saying, I'm taking it upon myself and I'm making decisions, and I'm saying, Habibi, if you're having problems with the abortion, if it is truly a problem, did I hear her say she went to a therapist? Did I hear her say she did intervention work? Or did I hear her say she decided to, without anybody else's input, make a decision about this baby because she decided to. You know?
Almost immediately what the intended parents might ask of you after the diagnosis was received. Where do you think that instinct that you had came from?
Oh, brother.
That came from that appointment, that second ultrasound that I had with the maternal fetal medicine specialist. And knowing that this couple isn't extremely wealthy, and knowing that I would have to relocate at least a month before I was due. And all of that would mean added expenses for them. So I thought this might become a thing where they make a choice of termination based on financial reasons. And that scared me. And it was also brought up by them during the appointment, the option of termination. It wasn't brought up by the doctor. And so that made me feel that they were already going down that road the day of the diagnosis.
What was it like trying to communicate with the intended parents during this time, especially, and having that communication start to change?
There was really not much communication at all. My liaison from the surrogacy agency took over and she was communicating between both sides. And so I was sharing a lot of my fears. I was sharing the hopeful stories that I was looking up. I was sharing those with her and asking her to share that with them. I didn't want to overstep. And again, I just felt like I didn't really have...
I didn't want to overstep, so I went to Texas to kidnap this baby?
...a say, but being silent also felt unsettling. And so I was communicating what I could through the agency and hoping that they were passing that along.
When you were told what they wanted, what was that conversation like?
I was at work and the same liaison from the agency, she asked if I had a second, if she could call me. And this was Monday following the Friday diagnosis. So just a few days later. And so during my break.
Which, by the way, a lot of parents are fully aware of, like, they've talked 1,000 times about, hey, what are we doing if XYZ? Okay. And I think like that's pretty normal. Like she's almost insinuating that they moved too fast. They didn't think about it long enough. Well, they probably thought about it before they even decided to have a surrogate. A lot of people think of, okay, here are the reasons we're getting an abortion. And if any of them come up, we have to move as quick as possible. I have 8 weeks to get an abortion in Croatia. So yeah, we're not thinking about it very long. We're doing all our thinking beforehand and we're making the appointment ASAP. Okay. Because we don't have time to start thinking and contemplating our life when we only have 8 weeks to make a decision. Okay. So yeah, I think it's 8 weeks, 8 to 10, whatever it is. So you know what I'm saying? A lot of people are already thinking about it because, girly, there's a window. There's a window, right? So I don't like the insinuation of like, oh, they're rushing into an abortion. Hold up now.
I gave her a call and she told me that this couple I was carrying the baby for had decided that they wanted me to terminate the pregnancy.
Okay.
Which
I understand is hard on her body to have the baby, to have the abortion. Nothing about this is easy, which is why, again, surrogacy is a very questionable industry. Okay. It's very questionable as an industry. It's neither, especially if you're a woman of color, the statistics of you dying, giving birth go up. So we understand that this is a very complicated issue from a very feminist, progressive perspective. We understand this is very layered and complicated. Okay. But we're talking about a woman who has kidnapped a child now, taken over state lines, renamed the baby, and denied the parents' agency because she decided to. And there's something deeply unethical about this. Okay. At the same time, I don't think the government or the state has the right to force her into an abortion. Okay. I also think two things can be true at the same time. I would hope that she would just have the abortion because that's the most ethical thing to do in this situation at the time, right? That would have been the most ethical thing to do. We don't want the government forcing the abortion and we don't want people kidnapping babies over state lines to deny parents' agency. Okay. Neither of those things should have happened.
Aspect is, again, being in Alaska, we don't have any providers who do abortions that late. So
hold on, Chatter. Chatter, hi, are you insane? You said, since this is a transaction, I think she should give the baby back as long as they compensate her accordingly. But we don't even know if the parents will pay her, so I can't take their side. Are you not understanding that a child has been kidnapped? I don't know what we're doing. What is this conversation we're having? A baby exists. A real human being was just brought into the universe, and they have parents who want them. And you're like, oh, but you can't have your baby back because like your parents didn't pay up to the kidnapper. The parents didn't pay the kidnapper. What is this, a ransom? Like, she was compensated as this was happening. There's a real baby in the universe. Okay. Chet said it's a job. Yes, but they're suing the employee for not fulfilling the job. Don't you understand? She's already being paid. You're saying pay for the labor? She's being compensated for her labor. Okay? This is separate from the idea. You can't hold a baby hostage because your boss didn't pay you. You can't kidnap your boss's baby. You're getting blocked. You're fucking stupid. You're getting blocked. I'm sorry. Don't be stupid. There's a real baby at play. There's an actual baby's life on the line right now. There's an actual baby existing who got forced into existence. And you're like, paying her for her job. I'm going to go kidnap all of my boss's babies until they pay me for my labor. Come on. Grow the fuck up.
I would have to be referred out of state. So she told me to call the doctor and ask for that referral. I was really upset and emotional, even though I felt like that's what was coming, to know that I was really being faced with that was really difficult.
You've said, you've talked about feeling like you had no way out. Can you describe what that felt like emotionally, because you're bonding with this baby boy, as well as legally and financially?
Yes, based on the contract that I had gone into, I knew that not agreeing to this would lead to large financial risks. I could be responsible for paying everything.
This is a good grift though, because conservatives are going to make her rich, bro. I bet if she starts a GoFundMe, she'll make like $500,000.
Everything back, which wasn't something I could do, and was a huge part of why I felt I had no other option. It was just like, who am I as a single mom to go into, a legal battle or find lawyers? Like, I don't have the means to do that. And so I really didn't know what to do. And it was just a horrible, trapped feeling to be like, this is my body and I absolutely don't want to go through this. But I just felt like I didn't have a say. But I would have to, in order for it to be done, I would have to be a willing participant. I would be the one signing the consent papers at the abortion clinic. And I didn't think that I could live with myself doing that.
What made you look for another option, even though it felt hopeless at that time?
So I had the abortion scheduled in Seattle. Originally, I would have been 22 weeks at the time of this one, but I was having a really hard time finding.
I gotta hear that again.
In Seattle, originally I would have been 22 weeks at the time of this one, but I was having a really hard time finding somebody so last minute who could fly to Seattle with me. And so I rescheduled for a week later. I pushed it out, and at this point it's the first week of May. And that just to allow myself more time to find a friend, a support person who could be there with me. And so I was originally supposed to fly out on a Tuesday, but now that I rescheduled, I had been at work, and my older brother had texted me during the day and just said, hey, give me a call when you get off. I just want to talk to you about something. And so I got off work like 7:30 at night and called my brother, and he just shared with me how deeply he did not want me to have to go through with this procedure, and he knew how I felt about it and how scared I was. And he told me that he had talked to his wife and that they would adopt this baby if it meant a way out for me.
What?
adopt this baby if it meant.
Why are they talking about kidnapping this baby? Unless the parents were willing to sign over custody of the baby, why are they all talking about kidnapping this baby? Why are they all trying to be heroes and be like, I'll take this baby, I'll take this? The parents want the baby. Why are they all trying to play hero?
A way out for me. And he's like, what can they take from you? Like, you have us, you have your family. They can try to come after money that you don't have. But like, we're here for you. You'll be taken care of. And
okay, again, guys, just like biology doesn't make you a parent, you can say, I think it's also her baby. It has fingerprints created by amniotic fluid, and I can't say this word. And her body, her cells help the baby grow. Stop. That's like saying adopted babies, the bio parent is their real baby. It's everyone's baby. It's my baby too. You want to know, you want me to go really extreme? All my nieces and nephews, my baby. Because we're all related, girl. Stop playing stupid with me. We're not in a little village, okay? Hanging out in a non-fascist regime like country, okay? Yes, it's all of our children. We all live in a village. But please get so fucking real about the reality that this baby is gonna face, okay? This baby is gonna have to have people who represent it, who'd answer to its needs, okay? This baby exists in the world because these parents existed, okay? Stop playing these games. Okay, stop playing these fucking stupid games with me. Jesus Christ, this is why Trump won. Because you guys are not paying attention. Every argument you're giving is one step closer to giving the government the right to tell us what to do with our bodies. And on top of that, to kidnap our babies out of our wombs. Okay? Again, these parents, that's their baby. Okay? I'm so sick of people acting like, hello? And I know you're saying, but she had the baby. It was her womb. She took a job, bro. I get it. It's hard. It's really fucking hard. That's why I'm saying if she was a good person, we wouldn't have the government fucking involved in this situation because it's hard on everybody. Why are you acting like the parents aren't like they're not struggling? You know what I'm saying? Like, why are you acting like that's not happening either? Like, lock in. Have some respect for this process. Jesus Christ. This reminds me of that mix-up with the in vitro situation where the white couple gave birth to a black baby only to realize they got the wrong baby and then the mom wanted custody of the baby. Hi, are you all fucking insane? You guys are all so fucking insane. If my baby got implanted in the wrong person and that because of a mix-up and then you claimed it was your baby, oh my God. Are you so fucking serious that my baby, because it was wrongly implanted in your body, which you are being used as a vessel, which is a whole other layer of dehumanization. You think I'm not going to fight for that baby? You know what I mean? Pushing it out of your body doesn't make it your baby because of science. Congratulations, girls. We got there. We got to the point in science where pushing a baby out of your body doesn't make it yours. Congratulations. We're in the weird times. Okay? We're in the weird times. Okay? So if we're going to be complicated like this, then you have to understand there are going to be circumstances in which, what are you even talking about? Okay? So absolutely not. You better watch yourself with these argumentations you're using about whose baby is who baby's. Okay?
He just let me know how much he loved me, and whatever I chose, he was here. He was there for me. But that just gave me so much courage and so much hope of a way out, and that I didn't have to do this. It was scary. Facing financial ruin was.
Oh yeah, Chad said, how is it Texas's baby if she's from Alaska? Because she went to Texas for safety. She went to Texas for medical care and safety because she knew a pro-life state would fight for her.
It's scary, but nothing was scarier than questioning my own soul and knowing what would happen.
Okay, again, chatter. One more time and then I'm going to ignore you or maybe even block you. You said, I have to disagree. I understand why you're feeling that way. I just think that being a surrogate is a kind of parenthood. I think that's what happens to a child should be done in its interest, but I believe it is all their responsibility to find the solution. It is, then you don't believe in your own argument. Okay? 1, you don't understand what I'm feeling because I think we're all parents of children. We live in a village. Joke's on you. 2, even though I believe this, at the end of the day, there are simply specific people that actually get custody and final say over those kids. 3, if you care about the safety, sanctity of this child and what's best for this child, it's going to be with the parents who originally wanted them to exist. Okay? Not with the woman who's kidnapped them. Okay? You are romanticizing what she's doing, and you think she's saving a life and she's doing this most amazing thing. Let me just tell you this right now. The way, and again, this is the feelings segment. This is my true feelings. If I knew I was kidnapped by my surrogate and my parents wanted me and they didn't get a hold of me because they had planned to abort me, I would be pissed. Again, I don't know how this baby is going to feel, but I'm just going to tell you this right now. No way are you going to come off like you're the hero of my story when you kidnap me from my parents. You are not the hero. You kidnapped me from my parents. Okay? So that is my personal opinion. That's my personal feeling. I don't know how this baby's going to feel. They're allowed to feel how they want. Okay? But no way are you about to raise me and say your parents were going to abort you. Well, that's my parents' right, girl. My parents had the right to abort me. You do not have the right to kidnap me. You see the difference? You see the difference? You see the difference? Okay? Do you see the difference? That is the difference. If this woman was really a parent to this child, she would have done right by that child. She would have honored the desire of the original parents, of the only parents. Okay? See, I just said original. She almost got me. Okay? If she cared about the child, she would have had that abortion. That's what I think. If you really, the best decision I ever made as a mother was not to be one. The best decision I made as a mother was not to be one. And I stand by that. I'm a better mother. That was the better decision.
Into this baby boy, if I flew to Seattle, and his life doesn't have a price tag on it. There's nothing that they could try to come after me for that would be worth his life. And that was a pivotal conversation.
How did it feel after that conversation?
Okay, chat, I'm going to block you. You said you're getting worked up and assuming people are pro-life. This is a complex situation because the parents who originally wanted the baby to exist wanted to cancel the potential existence of life. Hi, hello, you're not old enough for this class. That is literally the pro-life talking point. I'm not getting worked up. I'm passionate, but thank you for being a misogynist. Listen to me when I say this. You are using pro-life rhetoric and you're too stupid to know it because you're so ingrained by this culture, you don't even know that's what they're doing. You are literally using pro-life rhetoric. You can say you're pro-abortion any day, but every argument you're making on behalf of your pro-choice position is a pro-life one. Okay? Do not act like no. Okay? I have protested. I have actually, fun fact, I went to go volunteer in a pro-life center because I wanted to help struggling teenagers with pregnancy. And they said, okay, but you have to say you're pro-life. I was like, okay, sure. But like, I'm not like anti-teen pregnancy in the way that you guys are. They're like, no, you have to be Christian. I was like, but I'm not Christian. Like when I was young, when I was a teenager, when I was like 18 or something, 19, I went to a pro-life center and I said, I want to help struggling teenagers with pregnancy. And they said I had to basically become a part of the cult to do it. And I said, okay, I'm going to go to Planned Parenthood. Then I went to Planned Parenthood and volunteered with them. And they didn't ask me any fucking weird question. They just said, okay, cool. Can you get signatures? I said, yeah, I can do that. And then when I helped and I worked and I helped out. Okay. Again, like pro-lifers are in a weird culty. They have a culty goal. Not a cult, but kind of a cult. It depends on the pro-lifers. It does, to be nuanced. But there's a rhetoric, there's a dedication. You have to believe in Jesus Christ. There's a narrative is associated. Everyone she is going to is associated with that bubble. You have to understand she's talking to Lila Rose. You have to understand who she's talking to right now. You have to understand the pro-life, the malicious political powers at play right now. Guys, our rights are being taken away. They are talking about taking away women's right to vote and our right to reproductive justice. And I'm telling you right now, this woman's story is going to be used to take away our rights. Don't you see? Don't you get it? They are absolutely going to. They're utilizing the fuck out of this woman to convince us that she is a hero who saved a baby's life instead of a monster who kidnapped a baby. It's complicated and she has attachment to the baby. Then work with pro-choice organizations. If she is simply just having an incredibly hard situation, she's just attached to this baby, she doesn't know what to do, then work with pro-choice organizations. Why would you walk right into the hands of a fascist associated pro-life center? Do you know what I'm saying? If this woman was simply just struggling, and maybe she is, but it doesn't matter because she's putting all of us at risk with this stance. Millions of women are about to be, millions of people who can have babies, billions of people around the world are paying attention to this. Let's just say, because we're the US, okay? Maybe not billions, but you know what I mean. I'm trying to make a point. And who is going to suffer because of this? Who's going to suffer? I'm saying I would have loved to embrace this woman. I wish this woman had come to leftist bubbles. I wish this woman had sought, you know, what that chatter earlier was trying to claim, like employee rights. I wish this was a simple issue against capitalism. I wish this woman had gone to different organizations, but she didn't. She went to this one. She went to this one. And that tells me something. The fact that she wanted a straight couple and not a gay one. Do you know what I'm saying?
And you realizing you were not alone. There were people that wanted to help you.
And if she just cared about the baby simply, then why did she not go with the name Rumi, right? Why did she rename the baby Gabriel if the parents wanted to name it Rumi? That's what I'm saying. Everything she is doing is inappropriate.
I felt hope and peace, which I had not felt at all for weeks at this point. And when I was on the phone with him, I told him I would reach out to a friend of mine, Ellen, who knows you, and that I would just see what could be done. And so I did. I texted Ellen after I got off the phone with my brother that night, and by the morning, the next day, she had gotten back with me. You had
Exactly, chatter. Exactly. That they might use this as a case to also carry babies to term and say there's no good reason for an abortion. Look, I'm not saying you should have an abortion if your baby is disabled. I will never make that argument. If you have disabled children, none of my business. Disabled babies are just as valuable as any other baby. All babies are good babies. All babies are great babies. Okay? So I will not say that, but guarantee you that at the risk of the mother's life, which is already happening, many women have died. Women have died because they're being denied abortions. Why are we forgetting this? Why are we literally forgetting that conservative states are killing women by denying them abortions? They're talking about throwing women in prison for murder charges for having abortions, for leaving state lines. So you know how she went to Texas for protection? They're saying in certain conservative states, if pro-choice women leave to go to a different state for protection, they're going to get them on federal charges. That's what they want. They want to get these women on murder charges for fleeing the state to have an abortion. Do you get what I'm saying? This is bad.
Gotten her message, and the fight was on, and there was a way out, and I just wept tears of joy. I showed my mom that morning the messages from Ellen and from you, and I just said, Mom, I don't have to do it. There's going to be a way out. And it was just a very freeing moment.
We're so privileged to play a very small role in just connecting you to the people that can fight for you. And we want to fight for you in every way we can, because you are priceless, and this little guy that you're carrying is priceless.
Thank you. You played a big role. I really appreciate it.
What has it been like carrying this pregnancy, this baby forward, not fully knowing what the road will look like ahead of you?
It's been a little overwhelming at times. There's so much unknown still. But ultimately, I've felt.
So the baby is currently alive and in the custody of Texas. Neither parents, or sorry, see, oh my God. Neither the parents nor the surrogate has access to the baby. Texas State is getting the baby the surgery that he needs, and then they'll have to fight for custody, which is so ridiculous.
Peace, knowing that he's safe with me, he's growing well, and that I'm ready to face what comes if it means that he gets a chance at life.
And you shared a little bit about this, but what more have you learned since? Have doctors told you about his condition, about what his life could look like in the future?
The outcomes for this diagnosis are overall good.
Stop, chat, stop. So true, though. What would happen if she won custody of this baby and then they grew up to be trans? Well, that's what I'm saying. You're fighting so hard for this baby that's not even yours. And I'm not saying, I don't know the bio parents, if they're like, you know what I mean? But that's like the irony of this whole situation is like pro-lifers go like, we want babies. Oh, but not gay babies. Oh, and not trans babies. Oh, and not disabled babies. And not these babies. Oh, and not these babies. It's like, you want You want to fight for babies, but not after they're born. This is why they say they're like a pro-birthing movement, not a pro-life movement. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it does require surgery and monitoring, but people are in their 20s, 30s, 40s with this diagnosis.
and look, I understand that the conversation should not be like, who's the bio parents, who's not the bio parents. The conversation should be like, what was the intent? Who is this baby brought into the world for? And why does this baby even exist? And everything leads back to the bio parents in this situation. Okay? If you're a gay couple and you're using a donor, an egg donor, we don't expect that egg donor to fight for custody. Like, that's bullshit. We don't want rapists to fight for the custody of their children because they raped you and you got pregnant. We don't want to live in that world. We want to live in a world where the care of the child and the overall situation is taken into consideration to know what to do next. And if you look at the situation as a whole, it's obvious the baby should be given back to the bio parents. That's what should be happening. Okay? So we have to be very careful with these conversations. But in this situation specifically, obviously the baby needs to go back to the bio parents. Rumi needs to go back to his parents.
And there's a lot of hope with treatment, and he's worthy of that opportunity.
What do you want people to understand about what this baby means to you?
I want them to know just how much he's loved. I love him. I'm grateful that I'm carrying him despite everything. And I just know that he's a fighter, and he deserves to be surrounded by people who are 100% willing to fight alongside him.
When you first signed on to become a surrogate, what did you understand about what some of these clauses might entail, like termination clauses? And what did you know about your rights?
I really just looked at these scenarios as though they weren't going to happen. I was reassured, kind of like, these things really don't happen, super rare. They're just part of the contracts. And
so
I really wasn't focused on them. I didn't go into this thinking that I'm going to be faced with a termination demand, or that I'm going to be faced.
The New York Post reported the baby's back with their parents. Really? I'll look it up.
With the worst case scenario outcome. And that perspective has definitely changed since finding myself where I am.
Looking back, what do you wish you had known before you started this process about what these contracts may say that the intended parents have the right to ask of surrogates?
Okay, hold on. So a baby with a serious heart condition who was the center of a multi-state legal fight involving a surrogate who said she refused to terminate the pregnancy, underwent surgery Monday, the lawyer representing the child's biological parents said. McKenna West gave birth to Rumi on Wednesday in Texas. The child was diagnosed with a rare congenital heart condition. Okay, it says, okay, West alleged that the biological parents were reportedly pressured to have abortion. Okay, but before the baby was in Texas, the parents accused, okay. It says Rumi on Monday underwent a Norwood procedure, a complex palliative heart surgery. Okay. Rumi is now recuperating under the loving care of his parents and his heroic team of doctors, nurses, and medical staff. Okay, that's awesome. This is the last update on Rumi's health that his family intends to share. His condition remains critical and complex, and his family seeks privacy in caring for their son on this long road ahead. Okay, that's good news. I'm glad that that is the case. I think that's what should have happened, you know? Again, when we have conversations about options, when we have conversations about real intent, good intent, I think it's one of those things. I appreciate the article using the name Rumi and not Gabriel. Like, at the end of the day, it's not that these parents never wanted their baby. There's this bullshit marketing campaign that pro-lifers use that people who have abortions don't want their babies. Lots of people who have abortions desire to be parents. Okay? They go on to have babies. Okay. So this narrative of like, they didn't want him, I wanted him, but they didn't want him. They did want him. That's why they paid you money to carry their child, which again, I hope we've all learned from this situation that surrogacy is not all it's made up to be. So unless you can guarantee what that person is going to do to some extent, we should reconsider the way we bring babies into the universe. And my heart is with both the parents who desperately want children and can't have them, and the surrogates who want to, in good conscience, give people babies, and also recognizing that we're human beings, we're animals on a planet, we're having a biological experience, and not everything is going to be perfect. Not everything is going to be perfect. And things will go wrong. So you need to have people that are prepared for things to go wrong. You see how she said she didn't think they were going to go wrong, that she was told they rarely happen, so she never considered it. Please, if there's one tool I can give you from my toolbox, never assume you're the exception to the rule and never assume it can't happen to you. And just have the conversations out loud. What do we do? You know, before we decided not to have children, my partner and I, we had one of the saddest, I cried. It was the most devastating conversation either of us have ever had. And we had a serious conversation about what would happen if our child went missing. Like, what would happen if we were one of those parents who woke up and our baby wasn't at home, we didn't have a child, and somebody out there, like, we didn't know where our child was. And that was one of the most heartbreaking conversations that I have ever had in my life. That's why parents are just like, just tell me if my baby is dead so I can let it go. Because what could be worse than not knowing, not knowing. And you just, you hear these devastating stories. And I just want you, as much as it sounds like too much, I just want you to think about it. Not because I wanted to stop you from having a baby, because I want you to recognize that someone's baby is like literally kidnapped right now. Someone's baby is in someone's house in a suburb and nobody knows. Someone's baby is trafficked. Like, someone's baby is gone. Someone's baby is buried in a desert somewhere, and these parents are just wondering, like, will I ever see them again? So again, these devastating things happen to people. They might not happen to you, but maybe your kid is a school shooter. Maybe your kid has cancer and dies at 11. Maybe your kid has, XYZ. Something somewhere is happening to somebody. And to live with the arrogance that it's not going to happen to you just feels like a lack of humility. Of course, living in the fear and spiraling that it's going to happen to you is also going to stop you from living your life too. So don't do it because you're afraid, and don't do it because you're arrogant. Do it because it's a part of your joy, to the best of your ability. Because obviously not everybody gets to make choices.
I wish I would have really realized the weight of them, and that I'm essentially giving my autonomy away, or I'm expected to give my autonomy away to other people. And when you're agreeing on everything, that's not a problem, or it doesn't become a problem. But in times like this, in a scenario like this, it has been very degrading as a woman. And I've felt extremely objectified.
No, chat said lock this kidnapper up. We do not no, she doesn't deserve to be locked up, okay? What she deserves to be is an example of why pregnancy is hard, why surrogacy is not perfect, and why we need to remember that real people are going through real things. Look, I'm deeply empathetic to the fact that she was attached to the situation, right? It is her body and her choice. I do think the government can't force an abortion on her, okay? She is a kidnapper, and, okay, this is why abuse is a spectrum, guys. Not all kidnappers deserve to serve prison time. Not all abusers need prison time. This obsession with prison is not the point. Okay, this obsession with throwing people behind bars is not the point. We need better regulation in place to help people avoid these situations. Okay, Chet says kidnapping is a felony. She kidnapped a baby. Okay, so now you're making me defend a kidnapper because she did not kidnap a baby. She kidnapped a baby. So, okay. She kidnapped a baby socially, societally. She did not kidnap a baby legally. In the sense that in the way that you're saying. We have to allow people who are pregnant to advocate for their agency. Okay? So you have to be very careful with this. This is a pro-life argument you're using again, and a pro-punishment. This is the Republican argumentation. Republicans are not going to say You, if you're pregnant, cannot take this baby over state lines to have an abortion. You're kidnapping the baby away from the father. What if the father doesn't want to have an abortion? And the woman, let's say it's a heterosexual relationship, and the woman wants to have an abortion. Is the father going to sue the mother for taking the baby over state lines to have an abortion and call it kidnapping? If a woman is in an abusive relationship and takes the baby over state lines to run away from an abusive relationship, are you going to kidnap her or arrest her for kidnapping? Socially, it's kidnapping. Okay, legally, it is not kidnapping. Or in this way, we're not going to talk about a kidnapping. This is why these things are subjective. Be very careful about this idea of throwing this woman in prison. I don't want to throw this woman in prison. Okay? Thank you, chat. You said good point. Okay, I'm just saying, see, it sounds good. Everything, look, your first thought always sounds like the best thought. It's never the right one. If you have a thought that sounds good, pause. Dig deeper. Because the first thought we have always sounds good, right? Yeah, she kidnapped the baby, throw her in prison. Sounds good. But wait a second, pause. Okay, this is why lawyers fight. This is so stupid, but this is why the ACLU fights for the right for Nazis to protest or for Nazis to exist. Because you got to be very careful about who decides what's right or wrong. You got to be very careful about who's in power. So socially, we can say this is kidnapping. Society, like socially, friend to friend. Legally, be very careful. Be very careful when the government gets to come in. This is why people who advocate for killing pedophiles, be very careful who decides what a pedophile is. Okay? I'm not saying socially we shouldn't shame people for being attracted to children. I'm saying be very careful about who the government gets to decide is somebody. Okay? Be very careful. Okay? We're talking, these are two different things.
It was just someone purchased and they get to make all of these decisions that are...
I think she should be blacklisted from surrogacy institutions for 10 years. That's what I think her consequence should be. You're not allowed to work with any surrogacy agency for 10 years. And then by that point, she won't be able to have a baby anyways, because they have to have babies under a certain age. And generally speaking, and she's not a safe, she's not reasonably, she can't be working with the agencies. That should be the consequence.
Going to affect me for the rest of my life. Trying to force an abortion. And that's something that I would have had to live with physically, emotionally, mentally. And knowing what I know now, I wouldn't have signed up for something like this.
Okay. Thank you for learning that lesson. Would you like to apologize to the parents for the stress that you put them through? If she can apologize to the parents at the end of this, I will feel at least 30% more relieved. Because I understand the girl was going through it. I am never going to take away that a woman of color experiencing pregnancy in the United States is not a scary perspective or a situation. I will also say that I am annoyed that she went and decided to do this with these pro-lifers who will throw her under the bus when it's convenient. But if she can just apologize to the parents and see the hurt and pain that they also went through, the thing is she won't, because, we look into the future. This is a woman who we know after she gave birth to that baby was also throwing a fit. So, I don't think that's going to happen. This is 3 weeks ago. She's still pregnant here. But this is, you know what I'm saying?
What has the experience taught you about how much control a surrogate mother actually has when she enters under contract actually has over her own pregnancy after she's under contract?
Essentially nothing. The power dynamic is great. And the couple who is paying the surrogate really has all the power. And
what do you mean? You just kidnapped their baby over state lines. You had a lot of power in that moment. Damn. See, if you wanted power over someone else's baby, you shouldn't be giving birth to babies. Do you know what I'm saying? I hear her. I think surrogacy is not a thing we should be doing. I don't think capitalism should have its hand in surrogacy. Again, I am super anti-capitalist. I think making babies into a profit business is bullshit. So we shouldn't even be doing it. Okay, but don't talk to me about advocating for workers' rights with a fascist. Okay, don't talk to me about advocating for workers' rights with a Republican. Don't talk to me about advocating for workers' rights with a pro-lifer who never advocates for women and men to get leave to be with their babies. Okay, because everybody must be working. Okay, again, look at who she's talking to. Republicans will always weaponize leftist talking points and use it for the worst positions possible.
All the say and the contracts are designed to protect them and not protect the surrogate, not designed to protect women like me or the babies that we're carrying.
Can you describe in general terms the kind of financial pressures that a surrogate might feel if they say they won't comply with a request like termination?
I personally was told that I could be facing over $200,000 in damages and
Oh, so now you're worried about money, but didn't you say money wasn't an issue because his life was worth it? And you were mad at the parents because they couldn't afford or / were worried about the quality of life of their baby. So they wanted to have an abortion. And you're saying, oh, they were poor. That's probably why there was a problem. But also being poor wasn't a reason not to get an abortion or a reason to get an abortion. But now you're saying, oh my God, I'm stuck with all these bills. You wouldn't have been stuck with these bills if you let these parents pay you for doing your job. Like, you know what I'm saying? But yes, surrogacy is bullshit. Like, don't do it unless you're in a very personal, perfect situation. Otherwise, surrogacy should not be a business.
Financial consequences that I would have to pay back or cover for the baby going forward. And that's a scary number for most people. But again.
And look, from that chatter earlier, I think I blocked them. I understand. Or maybe I did, maybe you're still here. I deeply empathize with the very human experience she is having, the attachment to this baby. Listen to me when I say this, okay? I never blame a person for changing their mind about an abortion. I'm not mad she changed her mind about an abortion. I'm upset with her for going into a pregnancy she knew she was not willing to terminate in hopes that she wouldn't have to be put in this position. Because that is unethical. It is unethical for her to be in a position in which she allowed the parents to believe she would get an abortion, only then to say, well, because I didn't think it would happen to me, I didn't think it was important. Like, I'm not upset that she's having a biological experience, a connection to this baby. Then, I'm not upset with that. I'm empathetic. I think the world is such a messy place because we're not willing to be introspective enough to recognize, like, hey, I might change my mind about this, right? My partner knows. I will say this right now. I am on birth control. Okay, we are under the impression we will get an abortion if we get pregnant. I am still allowed to change my mind. Do you know this? Do you understand that we are very pro-choice? That I have said 1,000 times to you, I am not having a baby. But I recognize the reality that my birth control could fail. I could get pregnant and I am allowed to change my fucking mind. Okay? You are not going to hold me to something pretty set. You know what I'm saying? I'm allowed to change my mind. She's allowed to change her mind. Except it's not as easy to change your mind in a situation in which it's not your baby. So again, like, we need to use this as a reason to get on top of it. Preventative care. Okay, girls, when we talk about preventative care, we are bringing down the probability of harm. We're saying we should use this as an example to avoid all of this during that process. Do the bio parents accept that their surrogates might change their mind? Do the surrogates accept that the parents might change their mind? Are you still willing to go through with this contract? Because anybody could change their mind at any moment. How many surrogates are pregnant with disabled babies, love those little babies, and the parents don't want the baby and they abandon the baby with the surrogate, and the surrogate has no legal repercussions to give the baby over to the parents? The surrogate is now a parent. This has happened, okay? And so I'm telling you, all of us need to, especially if we're adults in the room, grow the fuck up, get educated, and as a society, educate everybody on the possibility of what could go wrong. That includes with something as simple as getting a tattoo that gets infected. Okay? I'm trying to think of a good example other than that. That's the first thing I thought of because she has a tattoo for some reason, and I have tattoos. But, like, you really got to think about it, okay? You got to think about it, okay? Chat says, wait, is it my body, my choice, her body, her choice to have an abortion, or is it my child, my choice? It depends on the circumstance and the context at hand, okay? If a 9-year-old girl wants to have a baby and that baby is going to kill her in that process, the child does not get to consent to having those children. The parents have to intervene and on behalf of that child, give her an abortion. Yeah, I said it, okay? I'm not going to risk the life of my 9-year-old child who was raped and impregnated in order to have babies into the world. I'm not that fucking sadistic, Charlie Kirk, okay? Right? I'm not going to do that. So yes, when we talk about consent, when we talk about any of this, we have to take the whole context of the situation into consideration. We have to look at the whole thing as a whole. Okay? It can't be black and white every situation always. We have to think about all the context of the situation. Who is pregnant? How is it happening? What's the risk? What are we doing? Okay? Come on.
He's worth so much more than that. And hearing that, once I knew how supported I was, didn't feel as scary as it did before.
What do you want people to know about the kind of pressure, about how isolating the pressure can feel? And, not just emotionally, but legally.
It felt extremely isolating. One, I don't know anybody who's gone through this situation. But
you didn't go to surrogacy like Reddit. You didn't talk to anybody in a surrogacy support group. You're not alone in this. You know what I'm saying? Girl, get it on the internet.
just knowing that I had gone into this contract and being like, well, I've signed this. I don't have an option. I don't have a choice. I wasn't even sure lawyers would be able to help me because of this contract. And that was a scary, unsettling feeling.
Has this experience changed how you view the surrogacy industry as a whole? And if so, how has it changed it for you?
It absolutely has changed my perspective. For the women, for the ones carrying the pregnancy, the ones taking that risk on their own bodies, and just being viewed as...
Ooh, be very careful though with this idea of why would you want a baby to be born with a heart condition? This woman sucks ass. Again, from a disability perspective, we do not want to buy into this narrative, a eugenicist narrative, that babies shouldn't be born with disabilities. If these parents wanted to have their babies with this condition, that's their business. Okay? Be very careful not to go eugenicist here with your argumentation. From a societal perspective, you can have an opinion. From a legal perspective, think about it. So again, I don't fault parents for bringing their baby to term. You know what I'm saying? And at the same time, you can have a personal opinion about it. Okay? But be very careful because, again, you know what I'm saying? Like disability activists talk about this all the time. Be very careful about why you're making that argument.
Objects for purchase to be used to grow a baby is how it's felt for me now on this side of things. And also just the implications for this baby and the babies that are produced through surrogacy. I went into this knowing I wasn't bringing a baby home, or thinking I wasn't bringing a baby home. But now, fighting for his life, I just realized that surrogacy is another avenue where...
To be honest, like before we put blame on her or the parents, we should hold the institution accountable. Because Chat says, I feel like this is why they all did harm. If they had I changed my mind convo before it happened, they would have made an informed choice. Well, that's not a guarantee. But I will tell you this. I mean, maybe she would have been informed. The agency should have been better at vetting. This is why I'm saying capitalism fucks everything over. Capitalism makes it sound good, like, oh, we're going to get legal contracts. We're going to make sure it's all above board. We're going to vet the surrogates. Okay, but then what's this? That agency, that's what I'm saying. It's unethical to start a surrogacy agency. I said what I said. I just think all of this shit ends up becoming like buying and selling babies. I think it can be just as philosophically evil as like saying women's only reason for existing is having babies. It's like, okay, for some women they might feel that way, but to make that general, you know what I mean? It's like, what are we doing? To associate capitalism with their hands and making babies, like, all of this is it's a very big reflection and symptom of the system. Okay, this is definitely a symptom of the system. And I feel for this woman. I hate that she chose the pro-life organization to associate with, because I definitely feel like she should have had a better community around her. But it sounds like they're conservative, so it is what it is,
Children can be disposed of basically because of a diagnosis or a defect.
And yeah, Chat, no matter the vetting, we're always allowed to change our mind. And so that's the other part of it, is we also have to accept that humans are going to human, and we are animals on a planet, and we are allowed to change our mind. Like, we're allowed to have a real, like, a biological change. Like, people doubt me all the time when I say, like, I lost my feeling about having kids, like it went away. People are like, oh, maybe you could get it back. It's like I had a craving my whole life for cake, and then one day it just went away. And I'm like, oh, I guess I don't want cake anymore. And everyone's like, oh, don't you want cake though? You've always wanted cake. Are you sure you don't want cake anymore? Could you fix it? And I'm like, no, I'm good. I just don't want it. So I accept every day that my body's going to do things that I'm like, oh, look at that. Like, I'm here to observe my body. I am not my body. I'm observing my body. The same way I'm observing my thoughts. Like, I am not my body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm barely my actions, to be honest with you. Like, this is a philosophy channel, right? We do philosophy through pop culture. This is pop culture right now. Okay. So like, just FYI, I understand very deeply that she's going through something that is very personal. And yet I would say, in order to prevent harm or further harm, Just keep this in mind when you guys decide, hey, I could use 30K. Maybe I should be a surrogate. Maybe you should not. Okay? Maybe you should not. Okay? This is why I say don't do anything because you're afraid or desperate. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
And because of that power dynamic between surrogate and whoever's paying the surrogate, it just creates an industry where women may feel completely forced to end the life of this child that they're nurturing and growing out of fear of the financial implications that could come with not agreeing to such a horrible demand.
So now she's just like fully pro-life. That's why, you know what I'm saying?
You've talked about babies being created knowing they'll be taken from their birth mother.
I like that she hasn't made the statement like I'm anti-abortion. I wonder if that's on purpose.
How has this experience that you're going through evolved your view of surrogacy?
Uh-oh, let's see.
It's changed my view on that as well. It wasn't something that had really crossed my mind going into this. I was just looking at it overall as a positive thing. And now fighting for his life and protecting him, I realize like I am all he knows. And even though he's not biologically mine, he knows me. And to him, I am his mother. I'm the one who's been carrying him and nurturing him. And it's my heartbeat that he hears. And
oh, this is so deeply philosophically evil. I can't even explain it to you because you don't even know. Not necessarily my audience, but I'm telling you right now, you don't even know the depths of how philosophically evil this statement is. This is why I say the world really is a reflection of us as a whole. Cause what?
It's changed my view.
It sounds nice, right? It sounds really wholesome. It sounds really beautiful. It sounds really authentic. I'm sure she feels like she's going through this, but girly, if you dig deeper, this is so unethical. I hear you. Again, this is the entitlement to people. This is the entitlement thing, okay? She feels entitled to this baby. And I'm saying you cannot feel entitled to this child. But it's an entitlement. I'm gonna answer a question from chat I got about entitlement after this, actually, because it plays into this. But like, she feels entitled to that baby, and it's not her baby to feel entitled to.
On the potential damage that can be caused by giving these babies away.
So just a question for you, Habibi, just a question for you. Let's say these parents, stay with me, girls. This is why it's philosophically evil, because I'll explain it, because I'm sure some people aren't getting it. If these parents never wanted the abortion and you brought this baby to term, whose baby is it? If these parents never wanted the abortion, whose baby is it? Is it your baby now? Is it only your baby because they wanted the abortion? Or is it your baby because it's in your belly, in your womb? Okay? Whose baby is it? Because now you're saying it knows me. It's my heartbeat. It's my body. Okay, girly, but you're a surrogate. So what did you think was going to happen? Now she says I changed my mind on it. So you changed your mind on a position, you get to take the baby? This is why I called her a kidnapper. Because I was like, are you kidnapping this baby? Even if you changed your mind, it doesn't make you your baby all of a sudden. I understand it feels like your baby. I understand you feel like a mother, but it's not your baby and you're not a mother. I mean, you are a mother to your two kids. Okay? You know? So what's happening here? Okay? Chat says, but it's her body, her choice though, right? Ha 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 ha. Block.
Away from the only comfort that they've known and doing it intentionally.
What would you say to a woman who might be considering surrogacy? What advice would you give them?
I would tell her to really, really think about all of this and the possibility of going through a situation that I have found myself in. And again, the autonomy that is really expected to be given away. And that's not something I would have done if I really thought about what this contract was asking and expecting, even just from choosing which provider I see, like just things that seem little, you're giving that away to somebody else. And so I would just tell them to really consider all of that deeply.
What do you think it is that people most misunderstand about surrogacy, both from the intended parent side and then also from the surrogate side?
From my experience as the surrogate, I would say that this idea that there is no harm being done to the child, and that we're going into it knowing that this child is not coming home with us. We may think that that's not harmful for us, but really just thinking of the baby being created and carried this way and how it can be harmful to them, and putting the child first in these situations.
I think that's that comment you're making about putting the child first. Putting the child first sounds like a great goal for any of us, especially as potential parents or people helping parents. But in your situation, do you feel like were you surprised by how you experienced the child not being put first?
Yes. I was. I felt like when the diagnosis was made, and the decision to end his life was made, that it was selfish, and that any potential pain or suffering that one might think just because a person has a diagnosis, they're automatically going to experience pain and suffering for their whole life, is a dangerous view to have. And a diagnosis does not automatically mean that there is no hope or that somebody cannot live a full, happy life. And I just want.
So again, leftists make the same argument against eugenicists. But again, be very careful. This is why conservatives and Republicans, even if it's authentic in their own mind, are actually weaponizing good intentions, right? Because leftists will say the same thing, like aborting a disabled child because it's aborted is eugenics. Like, don't do that, right? Saying, here's my reasoning for doing it is different. But see how she weaponizes that idea and says, like, I can't believe you would be willing to do this. But the dilemma is like the afterwards, what follows. Because again, an abortion, guys, I understand nobody knows how pregnancy happens. I know the world's stupid. I get it. None of you know what a baby is or what a fetus is or when pregnancy happens or how fast you get pregnant. Nobody knows. I mean, pro-lifers literally think like the morning after pill kills a baby when there's like absolutely nothing happening yet, you fucking idiots. So I get it. You're all fucking emotional about it. We're all emotional creatures. I understand. Okay. But I really wish you would learn what actually happened so you would stop freaking out about abortions and recognize that most people who are getting abortions are doing it at a stage where you wouldn't even fucking care. You know, again, an abortion as a terminology it's not even what you're imagining it to be. Okay. So again, you gotta relax a little bit with this understanding of what things are. Yes, we're biological creatures on a planet. Yes, having a baby can be a sacred and spiritual experience. Yes, that doesn't mean that an abortion is not necessary. Yes, sometimes if you have an abortion can be a spiritual experience. Yes, people who have abortions want to still have kids. Sometimes people who have abortions do not want to have kids. Sometimes you have to have an abortion because your life is under threat. Okay. There's a lot of reasons for a lot of these things to happen, and being reductive about it and just saying like having an abortion is killing a baby. Having an abortion is ending the life that would have come to term if it had been carried to term. Okay. And we are allowed to intervene when it's our body, when it's necessary, when it's medically relevant, when it's mental health relevant, okay? And there are situations in which when we're having these conversations, we can see the nuance and the layer, okay? I don't want to the government should not force this woman to have an say I said that at the beginning, I'll say it now. The government has no right to force this woman to have an abortion, okay? The parents have no legal right to force an abortion on this woman. We all agree, okay? Nobody's trying to force an abortion on this woman. We're saying, given your situation and the situation at hand, it would be the most ethical thing to do to have an abortion if you had thought about it, had time to think about it, if you had things in place, okay? So I just want to make it clear. My stance is the government cannot kill you, cannot force you into an abortion, and should not keep you hostage for 50 years in prison, okay? that when we have conversations about what the government can do with our bodies, it is not any of this shit, okay? But when we talk about what she had, her chance of what she could have done individually, as she was carrying a baby for a couple who really wanted the baby was diagnosed with a terrible condition that was going to be hard for the child. And the parents made the decision for their child, what they thought was best for their child, okay? And this woman disagreed with the parents. And because she felt more entitled to making the decision for what she thought was best for their child, she wanted to carry the baby to term, okay? And so the parents were not allowed and should not have been allowed to force her into an abortion. They asked her to get an abortion because they thought it was best for their child, okay? Their child. And she said, nah, I know what's best for your child. And that's what she did. And that's why it's wrong. Because she made the decision for what's best for somebody else's child, herself on her own. She took the power away from them. She didn't have a conversation with them. She wasn't even willing to humanize them through the process. She didn't think about how hard it was for them to make this decision in the first place, okay? And now, thank goodness, baby Rumi is back with his parents, okay? Because they wanted him. That's why they hired her in the first place. Separate from that, I'll say it again, surrogacy should not be a business. Capitalism should not have its hands in us bringing babies into the universe. Okay? Adoption agencies, prison should not be private. Surrogacy should not be private. IVF, all these things. These should be community efforts to bring our community and make it whole. They should not be community efforts to make as much money as possible on desperate parents.
I want this little guy to know that he does deserve all of those things.
What does justice or a good outcome look like to you going forward?
First, it would be him getting the surgery he needs and him having a chance. There's no guarantees, but there's a very high percentage that he goes on to live a life that is full of joy and experience, and justice would be him being given that opportunity. And then beyond that, I think changing laws around surrogacy is something that's really important as well.
What do you hope that comes out of sharing your story publicly? Which I know, again, thank you for doing it. I know it's taking you a tremendous amount of courage.
I hope that sharing my story reaches the people that it needs to reach and is impactful, that people see this side of...
Okay, chatter, just again, when you say the contract said to get an abortion in this scenario too, and she signed the contract, I'm saying her signing a contract to get a medical procedure does not mean she has to get the medical procedure. I don't agree with this, right? I'm not making this argument. I need you to hear me. I do not think you signing away a medical procedure that you did not guarantee would happen, to be shocked that it happened. She has the right to not have a medical procedure. None of us, guys, you know, if you sign a medical contract with your doctors, you're not forced to go through the surgery. You can walk away. It doesn't matter that she signed a contract saying she would get an abortion or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's just like the principled stance. That's the principled stance. But the legal stance is I don't give a fuck. You cannot force a woman to get an abortion. Okay? I just want to be very clear on this. You cannot force her to get an abortion or stop her from getting an abortion. Okay? So I just want to be abundantly clear with my stance here that her signing that in the contract was a principled contract. Okay? We cannot let the government force us to get medical procedures that we do not want us to have.
The surrogacy industry, and that it's not...
No, chat says, if he goes on to live a happy life, does this still not justify her choice? No, absolutely does not justify her choice. No, that doesn't matter. Also, we're going to be alive probably when this baby turns 18, and he's definitely going to have a TikTok. So baby Rumi, when you turn 18, bro, we want to hear your story. How do you feel about this whole thing? Like, we've seen that in our lifetime. Meme babies grow up and go to college. The Sun Baby on Teletubbies has a baby of her own. Baby Rumi is probably going to be on TikTok in 10 years. You know what I'm saying? And 18 years. Okay? Shout out to baby Rumi, you know? But no, baby Rumi exists now and we love him now. Okay? We're glad he's here. And also, may baby Rumi grow up to be the kind of person that would have supported his mother's right, his parents' right for an abortion. Okay?
Without issues at all, and just the way that it impacts women and children, and just to see it possibly from a different lens. And there's so much that I hadn't thought of or considered about the surrogacy industry that I now see, it's not all positive like I thought it was.
And if one thing changes in the surrogacy industry because of what you've gone through and you're still going through, what do you hope that one thing is?
I would hope that the abortion demand that is likely in most surrogacy contracts, if not all of them, not be allowed to be in the contracts.
What you mean by that? What do you mean for that? What do you mean? Like, again, if she's talking about that the government can't force you to have an abortion, I agree. But if she means on a principled stance that the couple, so now she doesn't want informed consent, right? Because look, she wasn't forced to get the abortion. She was, okay, but, right? So like, we don't want to force her to have an abortion, but she's pro-life, right? So she's saying surrogates should not have the right to have informed understanding of abortion? What?
I think it would change people's views of even going into it and paying a surrogate if they felt that they couldn't ask a woman to do that, which they shouldn't be able to.
Okay, so the fact that she doesn't want them to ask them to get the abortion is bullshit. It's more than okay for people to get an abortion. You're not a bad person for getting an abortion, okay? It happens. It's life. You know what I mean? So the fact that she is pro-life, the fact that she has now decided that she's going to use this opportunity to take away abortion options from people, period, that's crazy.
What does the next few weeks and months look like for you, McKenna?
Exactly, chat. Like, being a surrogate isn't optional. You don't have to do it. If you're doing survival surrogacy work, it's exactly why it shouldn't be legal, right? Or it shouldn't be not legal, but encouraged, right? Like, I don't believe in survival sex work as a goal. Like, no one should be survival sex working. But if you're a privileged sex worker, go for it. If you're a privileged person having a surrogacy and it's really like a part of your joy, do it. But survival surrogacy, absolutely not. Okay, and don't say, well, Brittany, aren't I doing survival McDonald's work? No, don't make me come over there, bro. Okay, all of us must labor for society. All of us must labor for community, not society like a Republican, community like a village. Okay, everybody must labor. It doesn't mean necessarily getting a W-2, but everybody must show up for the community. Okay, are we a collective or not, girlies? Are we the collective or not? Open with boundaries, though. Okay, and in this moment, she said she was trying to give a family a baby, trying to do this amazing thing, trying to da-da-da-da, but then boom. Okay, so again, right? Hey, to the antinatalists in my chat, Habibi, take your ass to therapy. Antinatalism is the biggest, most oppressive cope I've ever heard in my life. You selfish motherfucker. Like, think about how selfish you have to be to support antinatalism and call yourself good. Who is this the benefit for except you and your childhood self you never healed? With peace and love, I'm already pissed off enough. You want to talk about taking away people's right to agency? Antinatalism is another argument to take away people's right to babies. You're taking away people's right to do what they want with the most natural part of being a human being, getting pregnant. With peace and fucking love. 40% of pregnancies aren't even planned. And yes, is that irresponsible? 100%. But the fact that you don't know antinatalism is the other half of pro-life. It is the other side of the argument. Pro-lifers, forced birthing. Antinatalists, denying birthing. Lock the fucking kids, take your depressive ass to therapy, and get it fucking figured out. Jesus Christ. Most people are excited they live. Most people are happy to be here. You don't get to decide because you don't like it, then nobody else should like it. Most babies literally vibe with the fact that they exist. Get over it. Go to therapy.
Taking it easy and growing this baby boy for another month or so, and hopefully getting to see him through his fight once he's born and through surgery.
McKenna.
Okay, we're over this. Man, you guys are so eager to give the government rights. I got this comment the other day that said, pedophiles should be killed by the government. You guys are so eager to give the government rights. I've just never seen a group of people so excited, right, to tell the government, like, oh, please control our bodies. Please kill us. You know, please kidnap us off the streets, government. Guys, come on, lock in. If you are philosophically an anti-natalist, if you're philosophically a pro-lifer, keep it to your fucking self, okay? Don't tell me that your anti-natalism doesn't involve policy when you just said, I wish I was that kid so I can come back and tell people not to have babies. You just said the dumbest people on the planet are having babies. You're making a moral judgment of 90% of the planet because you're a sad person. Okay? I get it. Mental health is real, girlies. Okay? How are you making this a moral stance? Your ethics are bullshit, bro. You have bad ethics. Your ethics are literally sad and there's no reason for it. Most people literally vibe with existing, which is fine. As a neutral party myself, I'm neutral to existing. Okay, I vibe with my life now. Okay, just think about what you're advocating for when you say like, oh, I just think like everyone is stupid who has a baby. Girl, take your judgy ass to therapy and look in the mirror. Okay, that doesn't even make sense. Okay, that literally doesn't even make sense to be so fucking judgy about people having babies. Like, girl, having babies irresponsibly, sure, be a little judgy, okay? Just like a little bit, like gay judgy, okay? Like, really, those shoes with that shirt? But like, to literally sit there and say only dumb people have babies, please, talk to the hand. Okay, talk to the hand. Thank you. Let me answer this question from chat because I think it's important. And look, you know, the joke of my job is that I'll answer the same questions 100 times over, but I'm going to answer it one more time, girls. Okay, I'm going to answer this question for the 100th millionth fucking time because maybe this time I say it, you guys will hear it because I think it's important, okay? Shout out to this person. Thank you so much for asking the question. And yay, membership for 39 months. Girl, we have multiple babies together at this point. That's crazy. That's crazy. Shout out to you. That's amazing. Wow. Okay, listen to this question. They said, hey, Britt, I do have a question regarding this video. It's a video about maybe we're just bad at thinking. This video in general, especially about the part about not being entitled to people's bodies, not punishing people, etc. Okay? I'm curious on how you feel about people picking up arms to defend themselves, especially when it comes to liberation. Okay, you guys know I get this question 7 times a week, okay? This is why I'm shocked because I feel like this person watches so much of my content. Have you not seen me already answer this question 1,000 times? But I'm going to do it again, girl. I got you, okay? You said, for example, do you think it's okay for a slave to kill as a way to liberate themselves? For example, let's say I'm growing a community farm to feed my community, but I also supply food resources to people who are being hounded by the state. The state then decides to try and burn down my farm. Can we defend ourselves using lethal force here? If someone is about to be forcibly conscripted, can they use legal force to avoid that and get themselves out of the situation? Okay, who knows the answer to this? Right? Who knows the answer? Listen, I love it. Great question. Okay, guys, what does the word entitled mean? Who is the person in these scenarios who is entitled? Do you think maybe it's the enslaver? Do you think maybe it's the person burning down your farm? Entitled is a word that means something. Just like murder, revenge, bitterness, anger are all different words that mean different things. A farmer who's growing vegetables is not entitled to growing the vegetables. They might be legally entitled to owning land and growing crops. That's a legal argument. The ethical argument of entitlement means the person burning down your farm is the one exhibiting entitlement. You defending yourself against an entitled person does not then make you entitled. You are not entitled when you are defending yourself. Okay? You are just defending yourself. When I say entitlement, you are not entitled to people's bodies. I'm saying you are not allowed to walk down the street and be like, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kidnap you. I'm going to rape you. Entitled people, entitlement in this context is you moving into someone's space and feeling entitled. Okay? It's a very different scenario. It's a feeling of, right? And so like, if you're an enslaved person and you kill the person who's enslaving you, you're entitled to freedom. That's not you being entitled. Now, if you were an enslaved person who was free for 20 years, moved to a different country, and then you decided to seek revenge, that would be different. Okay, seeking revenge is now different. But you killing your enslaver is just an act of self-defense because you're entitled to your life. Okay, that's different. Okay, now if you're an employee who's working at Amazon and your boss won't let you take a vacation, you're not entitled to killing your boss because he doesn't give you time off. Because your boss is entitled to his life in that situation. You're entitled to quitting your job and going on vacation. You're entitled to fight for unions and for representation and for vacation time, but you're not entitled to killing your boss because he won't give you time off. Okay? Right? They said, for me, the answer is yes to all these questions. I will probably get eaten away by these actions because I don't think you can kill a person without killing part of yourself, no matter how justified. So yeah, I already know what I believe here in this moment because philosophy is a dynamic. I'm just curious about your thoughts though, or your thoughts are. And also apologies if you've already made a video on this. It's not that I made a video, girl. I just talk about it all the time, you know. Curious about my stance. So again, okay, if you're raped by a person and in middle of being raped, you defend yourself and kill them, all's fair in love and war. Okay, all's fair. If you were raped by somebody and 20 years later you saw them at a shopping mall and you took a gun and shot them, I don't think that's ethical because you're not entitled to taking that person's life. Just like they weren't entitled to raping you 20 years ago. Okay? That doesn't mean you shouldn't seek justice. That doesn't mean there should be there shouldn't be some repercussion or accountability for that rapist, even if it was 20 years ago. Right? So again, when we're talking about killing somebody, when we're talking about literally taking a life, we're talking about something very specific. And this includes animals, right? Like non-human animals. I don't feel entitled to animals' lives anymore, so I don't eat them. But I stopped feeling entitled to them when I started to recognize the unnecessary violence I was engaging with by eating them, right? So I stopped feeling entitled to non-human animals, but I used to feel very entitled to them. I used to feel very much like that it was like as if I was eating a box of cereal, I was eating a lamb chop. As if I was eating a box of cereal, I was eating a chicken wing. As if what made a box of cereal was similar to what made a chicken wing, you know? Like, I was so casual about it. I just thought I was entitled because, like, yeah, that's what animals are for, right? You know? That's just, like, what they're for, right? What's happening in my chat? Why are you guys having conversations that don't match up to what I'm talking about out loud? What do I have the chat that says castration? Sounds like eugenics. Like, what are you guys talking about? Are you guys talking to each other or are you talking to me? Okay. Chat says no one consents to being brought into existence and being born inevitably exposes a person's life to suffering. Antinatalism says reproducing is therefore immoral. Yeah, but the problem is like if nobody existed, then you can't get their consent. Guys, consent only exists in the person that exists. And consent is also nuanced. Your kid doesn't consent to being tucked in at nighttime, but they're going to bed at 8 p.m. Go. Okay? Consent cannot be weaponized against people. We break child's consent all the time for what's good for them, as we should within reason. But it's not a breaking of consent, it's being the responsible person, okay? So again, like you have to think about these situations. You just can't use it to hurt people, okay? But a baby who doesn't exist can't consent to existing because they don't exist. You have to get their consent. So in order for a baby to consent to existing, you have to bring them into existence, okay? It doesn't make sense. When I say this on stream, y'all need to hear me. When I say babies can't consent to being born, I'm not saying they should. I'm saying they don't. I'm saying we as the people bringing them into existence should care about the quality of life they're getting. I'm not saying you should ask the baby's consent. It doesn't exist. No, chat said castration is punishment for rapists. Hey, I think you mean this with good faith, but I need you to know that doesn't do fucking shit. Because what good is a penis on a rapist if women rape people and people without penises rape people? Like with peace and love, what good is castration? With peace and love, what good is torturing another person because they feel entitled to power and seeking power? With peace and love, this is the most brain dead argument because you've been taught it through conservative narrative. You guys are so conservative, you don't even know it. Conservatives think you should do this. Are you a conservative? Do you know castration is a conservative argumentation against it's pro the government have an agency over your body? With peace and love, what good is castration? What good, and who's going to do it? Would you like to be the one to do it and you get to live with yourself for how you torture other human beings? Like, think about what you're saying. God, the world is so conservative. And I've said this 1,000 times over. The world is so conservative, you don't even know you're conservative. Like, you don't even know you're conservative because it's so ingrained in culture, you have not even attempted to deconstruct it. It's incredible. It's like so incredible how y'all are fucking Republican. Not literally, but Jesus Christ. So easy to get Republicans on your side with narratives like this. Come on now. I'm going to block you if you say something stupid again. Okay? Yeah, chat says people need to unlearn carceral logics of accountability. Bro, it's killing me. It's just amazing to me how much none of you read books. Not my chat. My chat's genius. My chat's the smartest people in the whole world. Okay? IQ so high, the scanner broke in DBZ, girl. That's a joke. I'm making a joke, okay? We don't believe in IQ. I'm making a DBZ joke, okay? But I'm serious. Like, it's amazing how much the prison system is in your brain. And I get it. I used to be you. I used to be you not even just 3 years ago, girl. I think not even 3-4 years ago. I was eating that shit up. Maybe even 2 years ago, honestly. I was you yesterday. I'm going to start saying that. I was you yesterday. I was you yesterday. I get it. Okay, but listen to me. Every time I update, I go even harder. That's why I say, God forbid I ever become a vegan, guys. I'm gonna be so obnoxious. You better watch out. This girl become vegan, it's over. Okay, I'm gonna be the loudest, most obnoxious vegan you've ever seen because I am loud and obnoxious when it comes to my activism because it's so real. Okay, may I be the loudest, most obnoxious. Okay, in the cute way though, in like a cute way. Okay, in like a Zoolander, like. Okay. So let me just, okay. Just said Brittany's low-key second, third season of Thorfinn. Look, I have no enemies. I have no enemies. I simply have you in front of me and you're enough. I don't need enemies with people like, you know what I mean? I don't need enemies with great people like you. I don't need enemies with a mother like mine, okay? I don't need enemies. I already have my brothers, okay? I don't need enemies. I already got the world to deal with. Who needs enemies in a world so fucked? Okay, not me. So I have no enemies, okay? I simply have humanity to deal with and I'm willing to do it. Let's go, okay? Me, you, recentering us as not the focus, but us as a part of this whole thing, okay? Yes, chat, chemical castration doesn't work. It literally doesn't work. That's the funniest part of it. You're revenge-seeking creatures because you're animals. But if you have a deeper relationship with your biological experience, you'll stop wanting to torture people. Guys, if any part of your brain wants to torture somebody, meditate. Chat says, who needs enemies when you got a community? Who needs enemies? Who needs enemies like this? You know? Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay? And this is why conservatives always work because, you know, it sounds good, right? Like kill pedophiles. Hey, that sounds really good. Who's a pedophile? All the gay people? All trans people? Why do you think conservatives have been working so hard to convince you that all gay people are pedophiles? All trans people are pedophiles? Well, they elect a pedophile. Well, they vote for pedophiles. Well, they talk about how Andrew Tate is good for boys being a pedophile. Because they're absolutely going to weaponize that shit and come kill all of us for any reason. They already don't need a reason, but they're going to come up with one. Okay, my little gay flag in the corner. When I get harassed by conservative communities, they call it the pedo flag. Do you know that? You know my gay flag in the corner? They call it the pedo flag. Oh, trust me when I say this. It is deliberate and you are buying into it. You're going to get gay and trans people killed because you decided to kill pedos instead of doing what should have been done in the first place by working to prevent them in the first place. You act like the world doesn't raise predators every day by telling men to feel entitled to women's bodies. Come on now. Actually, let me just tell you about a pedophile. Let's end on a pedophile story because I thought this was really interesting. Let me make sure I have it saved. Oh shit, do I not have it saved? Man, I just got so confident. Do I not have this saved? No! Where did I hear this story? This girl did this amazing article about the Nobel Peace Prize and the pedophile who was protected by them. Nobel Peace Prize, and how he went to go work in other countries that weren't going to hold him accountable for his pedophilia. Let me see if I can find it. I just absolutely misspelled the word predator. Oh, damn. It was crazy. Oh, fuck. I can't find it. Fuck. I'm so mad. Oh, wait. Maybe I liked it. But I didn't favorite it. I usually favorite things to watch with you later. Oh, damn it. Fuck. I'm pissed. No, I don't have it. Well, anyways, that was the story. It was crazy, okay? That was a crazy story. And you just think about how these pedophiles are supported, and because they're Nobel Peace Prizes or because they did something in science or because they did something for the community, everyone's going to ignore it. That's why I say, go watch my Bert Simon channel. Go watch my second channel, guys. I just made this video because men are so excited to support pedophiles as long as they're handsome and successful. As long as they're handsome and successful, especially, they're willing to support them. Okay? But the moment they don't look cool, the moment they don't fit their narrative, ooh, they're gross. Ooh, gross. Pedophiles are so gross. Ooh, unless it's Andrew Tate. Ooh, gross. Oh, unless he has a six-pack. Ooh, you know? Oh, unless he's rich and famous. Okay? That's what I'm saying. Okay? Anyways. All right. Thanks for the convo, guys. Super stimulating. And shout out to all the people I blocked today. You're a real one. I'm so funny, bro. I'm fucking hilarious. I'm the funniest. Okay? Watch out now. Hilarious. Oh my God. Crazy. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Bye.